At a construction site in Jiangcheng, Yi Xin looked disheveled. He wore a tank top, revealing suntanned skin and well-defined muscles. His shoulders carried 4 or 5 bags of cement. This was his task for the morning. Move all the cement from the truck at the site entrance to the designated area for 400 yuan. Beside him, a short-haired woman with a stunning figure gestured as she tirelessly explained something to him. "Mister, ye please believe me, I'm not a liar. You really are the ace of our mysterious night watchman unit. You're the night watchman's strongest weapon. It's just that during an important mission 3 years ago, you disappeared. It now seems you were seriously injured and suffered amnesia, leading you to forget everything." Carrying nearly 400 pounds, Yi Xin seemed to move with ease. He stopped, glanced at the woman, and said, "Could you please not interrupt my work?" The woman wasn't wrong. Yi Xin's memory only went back 3 years. He couldn't recall anything before that. The mysterious woman was taken aback. Watching Yi Xin carry cement, she felt a pang of sorrow. This man, who once dominated the world, known as the night watchman's strongest fighter, a figure like a god of death, was now reduced to manual labor on a construction site. "Mr. Yi, as long as you come back with me, we'll find a way to help you remember everything. And you won't have to do hard labor here anymore. You'll possess immeasurable wealth." Yi Xin ignored her and continued walking. The beautiful woman pursed her lips and said through gritted teeth, "Mr. Yi, please reconsider. I'll come back tomorrow." Ignoring her, Yi Xin carried the cement to the designated spot, dropping it with a thud that sent dust flying, covering him in another layer of grime. He was used to it. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and turned to go back to the entrance. Just then a car stopped nearby. A well-dressed, middle-aged woman wearing a mask got out and walked cautiously towards him, as if afraid of dirtying her black shoes. "Mom!" Seeing her, Yi Xin's face tensed. This was his mother-in-law, Bai Lianxiang. "Don't call me Mom." Bai Lianxiang looked at the dirty Yi Xin with disgust and pulled a document from her bag. "This is the divorce agreement between you and Qingxue. Sign it." Yi Xin's face changed slightly. "Why?" He had been rescued by Lin Qingxue's father, by Lianxiang's husband, Lin Yaowen, after losing his memory. Under Lin Yaowen's arrangements, he and Lin Qingxue got married. However, 3 months after the wedding, Lin Yaowen passed away. For the past 3 years, Bai Lianxiang and her daughter had never shown Yi Xin even a shred of respect. Even though they didn't work and relied entirely on Yi Xin's construction job for their livelihood, they constantly complained about him, considering him useless. "Why?" "Because you can't give us the life we want. Tell me, besides brute strength, what do you have?" Bai Lianxiang rolled her eyes. "Qingxue's new boyfriend is a rich second generation. See this bag? 30,000 yuan. My new son-in-law bought it. And he's going to buy Qingxue a BMW today. What about you? You're dirty all day. How much can you earn? We can't even buy a decent bag." Anger surged in Yi Xin's heart. For 3 years, he had toiled tirelessly, giving every penny he earned to the mother and daughter, yet he couldn't earn even a sliver of their favor. Married for 3 years, he hadn't even touched Lin Qingxue's finger. "Stop wasting time. Just sign it." Bai Lianxiang sneered. "Once you sign this agreement, you'll have nothing to do with us. I'll pack your things. They were just delivered to the security booth at the site entrance. Go get them yourself. I've given you all my money. I don't have a penny on me now. You're kicking me out?" Yi Xin's face darkened. "That house is ours. Naturally, you're not allowed to live there after the divorce." Bai Lianxiang said disdainfully. Yi Xin gritted his teeth. "But I earned the money for the down payment." Bai Lianxiang chuckled. "But it's in my and Qingxue's names. It has nothing to do with you. Hurry up and sign this divorce agreement. Staying here any longer will make me sick." Yi Xin struggled to suppress his rage. For the sake of his benefactor's promise, he had toiled for 3 years, striving for the mother and daughter's approval, desperately trying to hold this marriage together. But now there was no need. He took the agreement, signed it, and pressed his thumbprint. "Good to know you still have some sense," Bai Lianxiang sneered. "It's Qingxue's misfortune to have been stuck with a loser like you for 3 years. Fortunately, it's finally over. She can finally pursue her own happiness. Happiness means finding a rich guy, right? Yi Xian scoffed inwardly. All right, from now on, you have nothing to do with us. Don't bother us again. The sight of you is disgusting. Bai Lianxiang couldn't resist adding a final jab as she left. Watching Bai Lianxiang walk away, Yi Xian felt a tightness in his chest. This world only cared about money. Thinking of the beautiful woman, Yi Xian gritted his teeth and ran towards the side entrance. The beautiful woman was still standing by the road, talking on the phone. Okay, boss, I'm getting a taxi. I'll be right there. Seeing Yi Xian approach, she hung up and said, Mr. Yi. Yi Xian exhaled. Did you lie to me? Absolutely not. The beautiful woman's face lit up. Are you willing to come back with me now? No. If you didn't lie, prove it to me. You said that if I go back, I'll have immeasurable wealth. Prove it. For example, transfer a few $100,000 to my bank card. Yi Xian looked at her. The beautiful woman frowned, then said, I have a mission right now and must leave immediately. However, in your belongings, there's a Shanghai Bank diamond card. The password is your birthday. Your assets have always been there, untouched. You can check it at the bank. Yi Xian's expression shifted. He did have such a card, but it was unlike any other bank card he'd seen. He hadn't even realized it was a bank card and had never used it. He looked at the beautiful woman, then turned and ran towards the security booth. Yi Xian, a woman just dropped off a package for you. Said it was your stuff? The security guard greeted him with a smile. The package was a large garbage bag. Bai Lianxiang hadn't even bothered to give him a box when she kicked him out. Yi Xian gave a wry smile and rummaged through the garbage bag. Inside were a few clothes. He searched for a while and found a faded blue card with diamonds on it. Sir, I'll leave these here for a bit. I'll be right back. Yi Xian smiled at the guard. No problem, but don't be late. There's still a truckload of cement you need to move. You'll get yelled at by the foreman if you're late. The guard reminded him. Yi Xian didn't reply. He had no interest in cement right now. He took the card and ran all the way to Shanghai Bank. New Sea Bank is a very mysterious bank throughout the entire Yanxia region. They are not large in scale and do not accept deposits below 10 million. In other words, they are a bank that only caters to the rich. Because the bank's confidentiality is very good, this bank has become the choice of countless wealthy people. Yi Xian ran all the way to the bank's location. The reason why he ran was that he didn't have a penny on him. Any money he earned from the construction site would be given to Lin Qingxue and her daughter. He took a breath and walked inside. But just after taking 2 steps, he was stopped by the security guard at the door. The security guard frowned at him and said, New Sea Bank, no idlers allowed. Yi Xian quickly said, I'm here to do business. Do business? The security guard looked at him with a half smile. Do you know what kind of bank this is? How can you do business here? As a security guard at New Sea Bank, he had seen too many customers come to deposit money and conduct business. Most of them were well-dressed, either driving luxury cars or wearing designer clothes. But what about Yi Xian? Having just come out of the construction site, he was dirty all over. His hair disheveled because of the cement dust, his white vest was almost turning black, and he was wearing a pair of tattered sneakers. He looked no different from a beggar. Could such a person do business at New Sea Bank? Yi Xian? At this moment, a woman's voice suddenly sounded behind Yi Xian. Hearing this voice, Yi Xian couldn't help but tremble. This voice was too familiar to him. This was the voice of his wife, no, ex-wife, Lin Qingxue. He slowly turned his head, and sure enough, not far away, a brand new BMW stopped, and then a man and a woman got out. The woman was wearing light makeup and was very beautiful. After getting out of the car, she very naturally took the man's arm. They looked very intimate. Yi Xian was furious. They were so familiar with each other, they probably had been together for a long time. And Yi Xian, after 3 years of marriage, hadn't even touched her finger. This is Yi Xian. The two walked over, and the man glanced at Yi Xian with a half smile, with a hint of showing off. Your ex-husband? In name only. Lin Qingxue pouted and looked at Yi Xian with disgust. He hasn't even touched my finger once, don't overthink it. Then, she looked at Yi Xian and said, EXIN, let me introduce you, my boyfriend, Han Shua. You should have heard of him. Yes, EXIN had indeed heard of this person, a famous rich second generation in Jiang City, a playboy. His reputation was known to most people in Jiang City, of course, not in a positive way. EXIN didn't expect that Lin Qingshua's new boyfriend would be him. Han Shua looked at EXIN with a half-smile and said with a grin, "Thank you for taking care of Qingxue for me these past 3 years." Lin Qingxue pouted. Taking care of me? What could he take care of? He worked himself to death every month and could only earn a little over 10,000 yuan. Not even enough for me to buy a bag. You are countless times better than him. In front of EXIN, this was a naked humiliation. EXIN lowered his head, gritted his teeth, and anger rose in his chest. What are you doing here? At this time, Lin Qingxue frowned and asked, I'm here to do business. EXIN answered calmly. At this moment, Han Shua laughed and said, Do business? Can you even enter this door? With that, he walked straight towards the gate. The security guard who had stopped EXIN did not stop him, but said with a smile, Young Master Han, this way please. Lin Qingxue also looked at EXIN with disgust, took Han Shua's hand, and walked towards the bank. As they walked, Han Shua's voice came over. Qingxue, I bought you a BMW and 500,000 yuan in funds. My sincerity is enough, right? Don't go home tonight. Oh, Lin Qingxue said coquettishly. Seeing this scene, EXIN's fists clenched tightly. He glanced at the security guard and walked towards the gate again. Stop! The security guard looked at EXIN, took out the electric baton in his hand, pointed it at EXIN, and threatened, Leave the bank. You are not qualified to enter here. I'm really here to do business. EXIN repeated. What's going on? At this moment, a cold voice sounded behind them. EXIN turned around and saw a tall, beautiful woman in a uniform and glasses standing behind him. She looked at EXIN, then at the security guard, and frowned slightly. She had a name tag on her chest that read Zhou Qianqian. This person said he's here to do business. The security guard pointed at EXIN and said, I suspect he has ulterior motives, so I didn't let him in. Zhou Qianqian glanced at EXIN, a look of vigilance on her face, but she still asked, You said you were here to do business? Is it a deposit, withdrawal, or something else? Checking my bank card balance. EXIN said honestly. The security guard said, Manager Zhou, why are you wasting your time with him? With his attire, it's impossible for him to do business at our bank. Zhou Qianqian looked at EXIN and asked, To check the balance, you should have brought your bank card, right? Can I see it? EXIN nodded. He took out the Azure bank card from his pocket. Because it was dusty, he carefully wiped it on his clothes, but it made the bank card even more dusty. He scratched his head in embarrassment. However, at this moment, Zhou Qianqian's expression suddenly changed. Staring at the bank card, she said in a trembling voice, Diamond. Diamond card. EXIN was startled and thought to himself in suspicion. Really? Could it be that the woman wasn't a liar? Was I really a super rich person before? Zhao Qiaoqian exhaled. Her chest was heaving. After a while, she smiled at EXIN and said, Respected Diamond customer, the security guard's offense is our service negligence. I will deal with it and give you a satisfactory answer. And beside them, the security guard's face turned pale. Plong! The electric baton in his hand fell to the ground, and he stammered at EXIN, Respected Diamond user, I. Although he was a security guard, he knew what a Diamond card user represented. He had just stopped such a customer. He might lose his job and even have to pay a large sum of money according to the security agreement. Zhou Qianqian didn't pay any more attention to him. She smiled and said, Please follow me. I will personally assist you. EXIN followed her blankly, walked into the bank, and went directly through the bank lobby to the VIP area at the back. There were not many customers at New Sea Bank. At this time, there were only Lin Qingxue and Han Shua in the lobby. Seeing that EXIN had actually come in and was heading to the VIP area, both of them looked surprised. 2 minutes later, all the employees in the bank were in an uproar. One person was on the phone saying, Hello, President, a diamond-level customer has come to our branch. Please come to the bank immediately. Lin Qingxue and Han Shuo frowned. Lin Qingxue looked at the counter staff and asked, "Hey miss, is this diamond user very high level?" The counter lady smiled sweetly at her and said, "Our bank's cards are graded. For example, Mr. Han Shuo's card is a silver card, which can be obtained with a deposit of 1 million. A deposit of 10 million is a gold card, and over 100 million is a platinum card. Diamond cards are rarely issued. Since the establishment of the bank, it seems that only 9 diamond cards have been issued." "What?" Lin Qingxue was stunned, and then looked at the VIP area in astonishment. Yi Xian, the person who, apart from having a lot of strength, was useless, had a diamond card? Impossible. Lin Qingxue said to the counter, "That person is my ex-husband. I know what kind of person he is. He is just a migrant worker with no skills. Don't be fooled by him." The counter lady smiled and said, "This is not something we can interfere with. Our president is already on his way. He will personally assist him." "All right, Qingxue, you know what kind of person he is?" Han Shuo looked at Yi Xian's VIP direction disdainfully. "We don't need to care about him. Don't let him disturb our date." Lin Qingxue nodded obediently. Before leaving, she said to the counter lady, "You must check carefully. This Yi Xian is probably a liar. Don't be fooled by him." On the other side, Yi Xian was sitting on an extremely comfortable sofa. In front of him, Zhou Qianqian handed him a tablet and said, "Enter your password here, and you can check your bank card balance." Yi Xian took a breath. He entered his birthday according to his ID card. Then, the screen in front of him changed slightly, and then a long string of numbers came into his view. The tablet in front of Yi Xian showed the number 12, followed by 8 zeros. This meant that the balance in his bank card was a whopping 1.2 billion. Hiss! Yi Xian gasped, his whole body slumping onto the sofa. Before this, he was the kind of person who had to work himself to the bone to move a whole truckload of cement for a mere 400 yuan. Now suddenly 1.2 billion had fallen on his head, knocking him out. Dear Diamond user, you don't actually need to worry about the balance in your Diamond card. Our Diamond users have extremely high privileges. With a Diamond card, you can mobilize sufficient funds from the bank. Zhou Cc reminded him at this moment. But Yi Xian couldn't listen anymore. This number was astronomical to him. Countless thoughts began to surface in his heart. This card is real, so that woman didn't lie to me. I was once a member of a mysterious unit, and I was very strong. I have an incalculable amount of wealth. That mother and daughter abandoned me for money. Even taking over the house, I worked myself to death to buy, and latched onto a somewhat wealthy second-generation rich kid. I wonder what their expressions will be like when they find out that I'm actually a super rich tycoon. Yi Xian didn't wait for the bank manager to arrive. He withdrew 20,000 yuan in cash, took Zhou Cc's business card, and left. He couldn't wait to say goodbye to his current life. Before leaving, Zhou Cc told him that if he had any problems in Jiang City, he could call her, and their bank would help solve everything. After leaving the bank, he hailed a taxi and headed straight for the construction site. He wasn't going to the construction site to continue moving cement, but to retrieve his belongings from the guardhouse. There were still some things left from 3 years ago that he needed to take. Just as he arrived at the entrance of the construction site, Yi Xian heard a burst of cursing. "Where's that brat Yi Xian? He said he'd unload this truck of cement this morning. Where is he? Does he still want to work here? Can he take responsibility if he delays the project?" At the entrance, a fat man wearing a hard hat, a shirt, and a suit, and carrying a briefcase, was cursing loudly. This was Yi Xian's foreman, Su Dong, an extremely harsh person. Wage arrears were a common occurrence. During the conversation, a thin-looking young man walked up to Su Dong, smiling apologetically. Yi Xian probably had something to do. When he comes back, I'll help him move it. There's still time. Yi Xian felt a warmth in his heart. This person was the only friend he had made in the past 3 years, named Yang Chong. They often worked on the same construction site and were about the same age, so they gradually became familiar with each other. Anyway, this task was assigned to him. If he doesn't complete it, I'll deduct 2 days' wages. Su Dong glanced at Yang Chong sideways. Yang Chong forced a smile and said, "Brother Dong, I still have over 10,000 yuan in unpaid wages here. Can you settle it for me first? You know my child is sick." Su Dong frowned and then scolded. What are you panicking about? The project hasn't been settled yet. The higher-ups haven't paid me. Where would I get the money to pay you? Brother Dong, this is life-saving money. Yang Chong continued to smile apologetically. No! Su Dong glanced at him, then rummaged through his briefcase, took out 500 yuan, and said, Here's an advance of 500. This? Yang Chong's face didn't look good. Take it or leave it, or get the hell out of here. Su Dong glared and cursed. You don't want to work here anymore, do you? He said it's life-saving money. Yi Xan exhaled and said, You're really being unreasonable. Su Dong turned around, and when he saw Yi Xan, his small eyes widened. What's it to you? Do you not want to work here anymore? You were supposed to unload the goods this morning. Where did you go to slack off? I'm deducting 2 days' wages. If you're not satisfied, then get the hell out. Yi Xan exhaled. He glanced at the advertisement board on the construction site, which had the words Zhonghai Bank written on it. Obviously, the development of this property had some connection with Xinhai Bank. He looked serious, then walked up to Su Dong and said calmly, I've been unhappy with you for a long time. Yang Chong and I are quitting. Settle our wages. Su Dong was taken aback. He obviously didn't expect Yi Xan to actually say that. Then he sneered. Quitting are you? No problem. You and Yang Chong pack your things and get lost. As for the money, I'll give it to you when the higher-ups settle the account. Yi Xan sneered inwardly. When the higher-ups settle the account basically meant never. Yang Chong's expression changed. He kept signaling to Yi Xan, telling him not to continue. Yi Xan remained calm and said, I said settle it now. What if I don't? Su Dong looked at Yi Xan disdainfully. Are you going to sue me? Or are you going to hit me now? Hit you. Yi Xan exhaled. I'm afraid I'll dirty my hands. The disdain on Su Dong's face grew even stronger. He pouted at Yi Xan and said, Then get lost. I don't have time to waste with you. You asked for it. Yi Xan exhaled. He took out his phone and found Zhou Cici's business card from earlier. Oh ho! Su Dong saw Yi Xan was about to make a call, and he chuckled. Diske. People who don't know would think you're some big shot. Making a call. Aren't you just a brute with only strength? A loser who deserves only hard labor for the rest of his life? Oh, right, you also have a beautiful wife. Too bad you're working like a dog here to support her. And you don't even know that she's run off with someone else. I've seen your wife and Han Shuo shopping intimately together several times. Or do you actually like that? Su Dong looked at Yi Xan disdainfully. On the other side, Yang Chong's expression changed. Su Dong, don't go too far. Su Dong glanced at the two, sneered, and said, You just said you were going to get lost. Now get lost immediately. Settle my money. Seeing Su Dong about to leave, Yang Chong also became anxious. Neither of them paid attention to Yi Xan. Neither Su Dong nor Yang Chong, who had a good relationship with Yi Xan, paid any attention to Yi Xan's call. They didn't think Yi Xan's call would have any effect. Ring, ring. The call connected, and Zhou Cici's pleasant voice sounded from the phone. Hello, Mr. Yi. How did you know it was me? Yi Xan asked subconsciously. I don't give my number to just anyone. I have notes for everyone who has my number. You were an unfamiliar number, so it wasn't hard to guess, Zhou Cici explained patiently. Yi Xan was speechless. He coughed dryly and said, Miss Zhou, you said earlier that I could call you for any needs, and Xinhai Bank would help me solve them, right? Yes, Zhou Cici said. May I ask if you've encountered any trouble? Yi Xan exhaled and said, Do you know about the Four Seasons Garden Development Project? I work here, and I saw Xinhai Bank's advertisement here. That project is being developed by our bank. Have you encountered any problems there? Zhou Cici asked patiently. Yes, there's a contractor here who's bullying migrant workers, withholding my and my friend's wages. Yi Xan glanced at Su Dong not far away and said softly, There's such a thing? Zhou Cici's tone turned slightly cold. How do you want to deal with him? Make it as miserable as possible. Yi Xan exhaled. Okay, please wait a moment. Give me 5 minutes, Zhou Cici said, and hung up the phone. Yi Xan narrowed his eyes, looked at Su Dong not far away, and muttered, Is this what it feels like to have money and power? not far away. Su Dong and Yang Chong naturally didn't know who Yi Xian had called or what he had said. Su Dong pushed the thin Yang Chong away and scolded, "Don't mess with me here. From now on, you and Yi Xian get lost. Don't waste my time." He looked at Yi Xian disdainfully and said, "Oh, weren't you making a call? How come I'm fine after you finished? Two losers." With that, he turned and walked towards the inside of the construction site. Yang Chong looked upset. He approached Yi Xian and smiled bitterly. "Yi Xian, you were too impulsive. He's withholding our wages. Now that we've had a conflict with him, we probably won't get our money back." At the end, he looked worried and said, "Sigh, and is still waiting for this money for this month's chemotherapy." "It's okay." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Su Dong is finished." "Oh?" Yang Chong was stunned for a moment, then shook his head, not taking Yi Xian's words to heart. At the entrance of the construction site, Yi Xian returned to the security room and retrieved his belongings from the guard. Yang Chong stood beside him with a worried look and said, Yi Xian, you were too impulsive. The construction circle isn't that big. This Su Dong is familiar with many contractors. If we offend him, it will be difficult for us to make a living in this city. Moreover, he will probably embezzle our wages. Minen is still waiting for money for chemotherapy, and you have to give money to your wife and mother-in-law. If you don't bring money back, they probably won't be nice to you either. Lin Xingxue and I are already divorced, Yi Xian said with a sigh. Oh? Yang Chong was stunned. Divorced? Yes, to be precise, I was kicked out. We signed the divorce agreement this morning. They packed my luggage and threw it out, Yi Xian said with a bitter smile, lifting the garbage bag in his hand. This? Yang Chong said with a wry smile. I told you to put your name on the house title deed, but you said you didn't care. Forget it. I should worry about myself. And it is going for chemotherapy tomorrow. Yang Chong became worried again. He looked at Yi Xian and said, You were kicked out? You have nowhere to sleep, right? Come stay at my place for a while. Yi Xian felt a warmth in his heart. Up to now, Yang Chong had not blamed Yi Xian, nor had he turned against Yi Xian because he couldn't get the money. And he even offered to take him in. This friend was indeed worth having. Don't worry, within 5 minutes, Su Dong will be back. He will beg us to give him the money, Yi Xian said with a confident smile. Yang Chong curled his lips and said, What abilities do you have that I don't know about? Okay, now that we've lost our jobs, let's go back to my place first. No rush. A confident smile appeared on Yi Xian's lips. On the other side, Su Dong walked towards the interior of the construction site with a disdainful smile on his face. Two useless pieces of trash, still yelling at me. Who do they think they are? I'll make sure you can't make a living in Jiang City. Beep, beep, beep. At this moment, his phone suddenly rang. He picked it up and took a look. His expression changed slightly, and he quickly answered the call. Although the other party couldn't see him, he still put on a fawning smile and said, Hello, President Lin? Why are you calling me? You can rest assured about my work. I will definitely complete this project on time and with good quality. You don't need to do it anymore. A cold voice came from the other end of the phone. Huh? Su Dong's expression changed slightly. What? I said, you don't need to do this project anymore. We have already found someone else. In addition, we found that you cut corners in previous projects. We have joined forces with several other real estate companies to sue you. You will receive a lawyer's letter tomorrow. Be prepared to go bankrupt, the voice on the phone said calmly. Su Dong's face changed drastically, and he quickly said, President Lin, is there some misunderstanding? Misunderstanding? Yi Xian. You know him, right? The voice on the phone became colder. Yi Xian, he works for me. He's just a piece of trash. As he spoke, he thought of Yi Xian's call just now, and his expression suddenly twitched. If you have to blame someone, blame yourself for offending someone you shouldn't have. The person on the phone hung up after finishing. Su Dong stood there in a daze, cold sweat starting to form on his forehead. The image of Yi Xian, who always wore a worn-out vest and looked dirty, flashed in his mind, and he felt like his head was about to explode. At the entrance of the construction site, Yang Chong looked at Yi Xian and said, Don't just stand there, let's go. Ding dong. At this moment, his phone suddenly rang. Yang Chong picked it up and took a look. Huh. He had received a transfer on his WeChat. It was from Su Dong, a total of 20,000 yuan, which was 3,000 yuan more than the wages Su Dong had withheld from him. At the same time, not far away, he saw a chubby figure running frantically towards them. It was none other than Su Dong. For a moment, Yang Chong was stunned. He looked at Su Dong, then at Yi Xan beside him, swallowed hard, and felt that his brain couldn't process it. At this time, Su Dong had already run to Yi Xan and the others. His fat face was covered in sweat, not sure if it was from exhaustion or cold sweat. He tremblingly took out a box of cigarettes, opened it, and handed it to Yi Xan, saying, Brother Xan, have a smoke." Yi Xan didn't take the cigarette. He opened his phone, looked at the transfer record, and after receiving the payment, he transferred the extra portion back to Su Dong, saying, "I only take what I deserve. Brother Xan, I was wrong. I sincerely apologize to you. Can you please spare me?" Su Dong bowed and scraped. Compared to his previous arrogant attitude, he was a completely different person. Yi Xan glanced at him and said, "What you do is your own business. It has nothing to do with me. I just want to get back the money I deserve. As for the rest, it's none of my business." After saying that, he turned around, looked at the dazed Yang Chong, and said, "Let's go." Thud. Su Dong sat down on the ground, muttering, "It's over. What the hell is going on?" Yang Chong was stunned. Yi Xan smiled and didn't explain. He couldn't explain this to Yang Chong. That woman said that he was from a secret unit. There must be many things he couldn't say, and he didn't dare to say anything until it was confirmed. Moreover, even if he did say it, Yang Chong probably wouldn't believe it. He glanced at Su Dong, then pulled Yang Chong away from the construction site. As for Su Dong's fate, it could only be said that he brought it upon himself. "You didn't do this, did you?" After walking for a while, Yang Chong still asked in disbelief. "What do you think?" Yi Xan asked with a smile. "Definitely not. I know what you're like. If you had this ability, you wouldn't be working your ass off at the construction site. And your wife wouldn't." In the end, Yang Chong grinned and changed the subject. "Tell me honestly, did you catch him doing something wrong?" "You could say that," Yi Xan said with a smile. Yang Chong smiled and said, "I knew it. But it's still good to get the money." Careful. On the sidewalk, a woman riding an electric scooter seemed to have lost her brakes and was heading straight for Yi Xan. Yi Xan naturally saw it too and quickly dodged to the side. As he dodged, the electric scooter also swerved and crashed into a tree beside it. The documents on her scooter scattered all over the ground. On the electric scooter sat a young and beautiful girl. Seeing that she didn't hit anyone, she breathed a sigh of relief, then turned her head and saw Yi Xan. She said in surprise, Yi Xan also recognized her and frowned slightly. This girl was called Lin Xian, Lin Qingshua's cousin. Of course, Yi Xan didn't have a good impression of their family. Lin Xian's family was considered well off. Her parents were both teachers, and Lin Xian also had a decent job. When Lin Qingxua married Yi Xan, their family was also strongly opposed. In the end, it was Lin Qingshua's father who insisted, and the two finally got married. But usually, Lin Xian's family never showed Yi Xan any respect. "Yi Xan, are you blind when you walk?" Lin Xian glared and said, "Didn't you see the scooter coming? You made me crash into the tree." Yi Xan was speechless. In these 3 years, he had never been able to hold his head up in front of Lin Qingshua's relatives and friends. He mostly endured their ridicule. But now, he was divorced, and his identity had changed. He sneered and said, "You were riding on the sidewalk and almost hit me, and now you're blaming me? You think you're right?" Lin Xian said, "You look so dirty, it's disgusting just to look at you. I really don't know why my uncle married my sister to you. Fortunately, you're divorced now, and my sister has found her own happiness. You deserve it." Yi Xan's eyes flashed with a cold light. They were indeed cut from the same cloth. "What? You want to hit me?" Lin Xian saw Yi Xan's fierce look, but she was not afraid at all. Instead, she stepped forward and scolded him. "You're being so unreasonable." Yang Chong, who couldn't stand it any longer, spoke up from the side. Lin Xian shot him a glance and muttered, "What's it to you?" Yang Chong was about to say something else, but Yi Xan stopped him with a hand gesture. He looked at Lin Qian and said, I can't be bothered to argue with you, but remember this. You, Lin Qingxue, and all your relatives, you'll all regret this one day. Regret? Based on what? Are you going to make us regret it by hauling bricks at the construction site every day? Lin Qian said disdainfully. Yi Xian didn't want to argue with her anymore. He exhaled and said, Yang Chang, let's go. Stop right there. Lin Qian shouted when she saw Yi Xian was leaving. My car was damaged, you have to pay for it, and pick up all those documents on the ground. Yi Xian was furious. These people were really used to bullying him. He took a deep breath, ignored Lin Qian, and left with Yang Chang. Loser. Lin Qian pouted at Yi Xian's retreating figure, scoffing disdainfully. After walking a while, Yang Chang said helplessly, Are you really going to let it go just like that? I worked like a dog, taking care of their family, working myself to the bone outside, and still had to cook and clean when I got home. Yi Xian's face flashed with anger. Now, they just kicked me out just like that. If it weren't for some things that happened, I'd probably be sleeping on the construction site tonight. How could I just let it go? Yang Chang sighed. Maybe it's better to just let it go. Lin Qingxue is with Han Shuo now, and his family is quite wealthy in Jiangqing. And doesn't Lin Qingxue's uncle own a company? We're just ordinary people. We can't fight them. Yes, Lin Qingxue's uncle did own a company, but it wasn't very big. Yi Xian had mentioned going to work at his uncle's company before, but his uncle thought he was useless and only offered him a security guard position. The salary was too low to support Lin Qingxue and her daughter, so Yi Xian ended up at the construction site. Yi Xian pursed his lips and didn't say anything more. Yang Chang lived alone, renting a single room in the old town of Jiangqing. Like Yi Xian, his life wasn't easy either, perhaps even worse. He came from the countryside and got married and had a child at the age of 20. But after coming to the city, his wife soon ran away without a trace. The worst part was that his son, Yang Anin, was diagnosed with a congenital disease that required chemotherapy every month. Yang Chang was thin and frail, but he was the hardest worker because if he didn't work hard, his son might not survive. When they got home, Yang Chang changed his clothes and said, You can stay here for now. I'm going to pick up an in from school for his chemotherapy. You can take care of your own dinner. I remember your son's illness can be cured with surgery, right? Yi Xian asked. It can, but it costs 300,000 yuan. You know, all my money goes to this bottomless pit every month. I can't afford 300,000 yuan, Yang Chang sighed. I can lend it to you, Yi Xian said. Yang Chang was stunned for a moment. Then he said speechlessly, Don't mess with me. I'm going to pick up an in now. With that, he ignored Yi Xian and rushed out the door. Yi Xian smiled wryly and rubbed his nose. Of course, no one believes I suddenly have money. He shook his head, went to the bathroom to take a shower, changed his clothes, and tidied up his belongings. Then his brows furrowed slightly. Bai Lianxiang hadn't sent all of his things. He remembered a metal box that he had been holding when he was rescued. He couldn't recall what was inside, and later it was used to prop up something on the balcony. Now it seemed that this box was likely related to the mission where he lost his memory. I have to go back, Yi Xian mused. Thinking of Lin Qingxue's family, his face darkened again. I remember Lin Qian works as an HR at a company called Shengshi, Yi Xian thought, then took out his phone and found Zhou Qianqian's number again. Hello. Zhou Qianqian's pleasant voice came from the other end of the line. Mr. Yi, is there anything I can help you with? Do you know Shengshi Company? Yi Xian asked. Yes, I've heard of it. It's a relatively large logistics company in Jiangqing. We have some business dealings with them, and I happen to be the one in charge of them, Zhou Qianqian replied. Yi Xian pondered for a moment, and then exhaled. Well, can I acquire their company with my current funds? Oh? You want to acquire Shengshi? Zhou Qianqian asked in surprise. Yes, Yi Xian nodded. You can definitely acquire them with your current funds. The company's market value is around 200 million yuan, and you have more than enough cash flow, Zhou Qianqian quickly nodded. All right, I'm not familiar with acquisitions. Can I hire you to help me acquire it? We can discuss the compensation, Yi Xian said. If possible, the sooner the better. Zhou Qianqian smiled slightly. No problem. I'll have it done within today. You can sign the contract tomorrow. Thank you, Yixian said quickly. After hanging up the phone, a slight smile appeared on Yixian's face. I wonder what Lin Qian's expression will be when she finds me sitting in the CEO's office of their company. He thought to himself, tomorrow, that beautiful woman will come to the construction site to pick me up. Hopefully, she can help me recover my memory. The god of war of the secret forces. He sat there, organizing his thoughts, then got up and left the house, planning to go back and retrieve the iron box first. He went out and habitually took the subway to go home. No, to his former home. Arriving at the door, he took out the key, ready to open the door, when he heard laughter coming from inside. Sis, congratulations on finally getting rid of that loser Yixian. You won't believe it, I ran into him today, dressed like a beggar. Good thing you found a handsome and rich boyfriend now. I'm so envious. I heard he gave you a BMW and bought you hundreds of thousands of yuan in funds. It was Lin Qian's voice. Yixian's heart stirred. Lin Qingxue was smart enough not to spend the night with Han Shuo. Oh, you're so pretty, you'll definitely find an even more handsome and richer husband in the future, Lin Qingxue said with a smile. Finding a boyfriend or not is one thing. It's a good thing as long as she can divorce the Yixian. I don't know what Big Brother was thinking, insisting that you marry Yixian. He's useless except for his brute strength. It's the 21st century, brute strength is useless. He'll be stuck at the bottom of society forever. Another voice chimed in. This was Lin Qian's father, Lin Jing'an. Oh, let's not talk about that loser anymore. We should congratulate big sister-in-law on finding a wealthy husband. After all these years, she's finally made it. That's right. Then a group of people started talking happily again. At the door, a cold glint flashed in Yixian's eyes. It was as if they were celebrating a festival because of his divorce. Humph. Yixian took a deep breath, inserted the key, and turned it, but he couldn't open the door. The lock. It had been changed. He sneered and knocked on the door. Who is it? A voice came from inside. Then the door opened, and Bai Lianxiang stood at the doorway. Seeing Yixian, she was slightly stunned at first, then said impatiently, What are you doing back here? Are you planning to keep pestering us? I'm here to get my things, Yixian said calmly. Didn't I already send your things over? I threw away the rest. Bai Lianxiang said, about to close the door. Yixian put his hand on the door and said again, There's a metal box propping up a box on the balcony. I was holding it when Uncle saved me. I need to take it with me. With that, he was about to enter. Don't come in. I'll get it for you. Don't dirty my house, Bai Lianxiang said quickly. Yixian was furious. Dirty? This house was bought with my money, and I was the one who mopped the floors. However, he didn't go in, just thought to himself with a cold smile. Tomorrow, after I acquire Lin Qian's company, your expressions will be quite interesting. He stood at the door. In the living room, Lin Qingxue's relatives looked at him with disgust. The originally lively living room became quiet because of his arrival. Lin Qingxue frowned, stood up, walked to the door, looked at Yixian and said, I know you're angry and think my mom and I are being too harsh. But you should also know that someone like you is not worthy of me, Lin Qingxue said. I only married you to fulfill my father's wish. Yixian scoffed and ignored her. After you take your things, don't come to see me anymore. I'm afraid Han Shuo will be upset if he sees you, Lin Qingxue added. At this time, Bai Lianxiang came to the door, holding a dusty little iron box with her fingers, and threw it at Yixian. Okay, you can go now. Yixian caught the iron box and breathed a sigh of relief. Then he looked into the room and said with a slight sneer, You will regret it. Regret? Yixian, let me tell you, if you ever amount to anything, I, Lin Qian, will never marry. Lin Qian said disdainfully from inside the room. Yixian looked up at her, a smile appearing on his face, and said, Remember your words. Naturally, no one in Lin Qingxue's family paid any attention to Yixian's words. After Bai Lianxiang threw the things at him, she slammed the door shut with a bang. Looking at the tightly closed door in front of him, Yixian touched his nose, sneered, turned, and left. Garden District, Building 6, Unit 7-2, the three-bedroom apartment that Yixian had worked so hard to buy, he no longer had the right to live in it. He ate something outside and took the subway back to Yang Chang's place. On the subway, Zhou Qianqian called him, informing him that she had already negotiated with Shengshi Company, and they had agreed to a full acquisition. Zhou Qianqian had negotiated the price down to 190 million yuan, saving Xian a lot of money. The signing was scheduled for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Xian was overjoyed and couldn't wait for tomorrow. Lin Qian's expression at that time should be very interesting. At the same time, he also had a chance to recover his memory tomorrow. With a mix of emotions, he spent the night on a chair at Yang Chang's place. The next day, he said goodbye to Yang Chang, left his house, looked up the address of Shengshi Company online, and then took the subway to the company. At 9:30, he arrived at his destination. Shengshi Company was considered the largest logistics company in Jiang City. They had a 6-story office building. When Xian reached the entrance, the security guard at the gate stopped him and asked, "Stop. What are you doing here?" Xian was slightly taken aback. Then a smile appeared on his face, and he said, "Well, I guess I'm here to work." "Work? Where's your employee badge?" The security guard walked up to Xian and asked. Just as Xian was about to explain, a voice suddenly came from behind him. "Xian?" Xian looked in the direction of the voice and saw Lin Qian riding his electric scooter, stopping at the company entrance. "Yo, pretty Lin, late again today? Be careful not to get scolded," the security guard at the gate said. "I already informed the boss." "What's he doing here?" Lin Qian asked. "He said he's here to work," the security guard explained. "Work? You're here to be a security guard?" Lin Qian looked at Xian with a half-smile and asked, "Didn't you say yesterday that you would make our family regret it? Is coming to our company to be a security guard how you're going to make us regret it?" Xian sneered and said, "You'll find out soon enough." "I don't know if I'll regret it later, but I know you'll regret it now," Lin Qian sneered. The security guard standing at the gate's eyes lit up. From the conversation between Xian and Lin Qian, he could tell that they were not on good terms. He felt it was necessary to step up and show off in front of a beautiful woman like Lin Qian. Who knows, there might be an opportunity. He glanced at Xian and said, "You're here to be a security guard? Who hired you?" "As the security captain." "How come I don't know?" "You don't need to come to work. Just get lost." Xian glanced at him and asked calmly, "Since when does a security captain have the authority to fire people?" "You." Anger flashed across the security captain's face. "He doesn't have the authority to fire you, but someone does," Lin Qian sneered, taking out her phone and making a call. She said in a sweet voice, "Hey, boss, the company hired a security guard that I really don't like. Can you fire him?" "Yes, I'm at the entrance. Come here," Lin Qian said, then hung up the phone and looked at Xian. "You seem to be unaware that I work in human resources in this company. My boss is the HR director. Firing you is just a matter of minutes." Sure enough, 2 minutes later, a well-dressed man in his 30s walked out of the entrance. When he saw Lin Qian, he smiled broadly and said, "Qian, you're late again." From the look in his eyes, it was clear that he was pursuing Lin Qian. From Lin Qian's eyes, Xian could also tell that she wasn't interested in this so-called HR director. She was merely keeping him as a backup. The man walked downstairs, looked at Xian and said, "He's the new security guard?" Lin Qian quickly nodded and said yes. He looked Xian up and down and said, "You don't need to come anymore?" Then he turned to Lin Qian and said, "Qian, let's go upstairs. I've prepared breakfast for you." Lin Qian glanced at Xian with an air of superiority and a disdainful smile, saying, "I really regret it." With that, she pushed her scooter and walked towards the office building with the HR director. Xian didn't say anything. He touched his nose. A few minutes later, seeing that Xian still hadn't left, the security captain glared and said, "What are you still doing here? Get lost." Xian gave him a cold look. The captain's expression changed, and he said, "You dare to glare at me? Looks like you don't want to live anymore, huh? Beep beep." Just then, a Mercedes-Benz slowly drove over and honked its horn. The window rolled down, and a middle-aged man in the back seat leaned out and asked, "What's going on?" The security captain quickly bowed and said, "Boss, it's a small matter. I'll open the gate for you right away." "Mr. Yi." At that moment, a pleasant voice came from the other side of the back seat. Yi Xian looked over and saw Zhou Qianqian, wearing glasses and a uniform, sitting in the car. The middle-aged man, upon hearing Zhou Qianqian's words, looked at Yi Xian in surprise and said, "He's the Mr. Yi who wants to acquire our company." Zhou Qianqian nodded. "That's right." The middle-aged man quickly opened the car door and got out. Under the stunned gaze of the security captain, he walked up to Yi Xian and said, "Mr. Yi, you're truly a young talent, to be able to acquire our company at such a young age." Zhou Qianqian also got out of the car, winked at Yi Xian, and then smiled. "Let me introduce you. This is Mr. Gang, Mr. He Gang frowned and asked, "Mr. Yi, why didn't you go upstairs to wait for me?" Nearby, the security captain's forehead was already covered in cold sweat. He swallowed hard and said, "Boss, did you make a mistake? He seems to be here to work as a security guard." Seeing his reaction, He Gang understood what had happened. He looked at the security captain and smiled. "In a moment, this Mr. You will be your new boss." This. The security captain's face changed drastically. He Gang didn't say anything more. He made a gesture of invitation and said, "Let's go inside the company to talk." Yi Xian smiled and nodded. Then he looked at the security captain and said, "You don't need to come to work anymore." The signing process was not complicated. Yi Xian signed and pressed his fingerprint. The intermediate procedures were handled by Zhou Qianqian. There wasn't much turbulence in the company. Only a few senior executives knew about this matter. At 10:30, the acquisition contract officially took effect. Yi Xian exhaled and looked at the company's executive president. "The first thing, fire the HR director. Find a new one." The executive president was taken aback. He didn't expect Yi Xian to issue such an order right after signing the contract, but he still nodded and said, "Okay, I'll take care of it right now." On the third floor of the company, in an office for the Human Resources Department, the HR director, Chen Feng, was sitting next to Lin Qian, smiling and asking, "Are these buns delicious? I drove over 10 kilometers this morning just to buy them for you. You have to accompany me to a movie after work today." The people in the HR department were used to this. Everyone in the department knew that Chen Feng was interested in Lin Qian. Lin Qian pouted, just about to speak, when someone walked in and said, "No need to go after work." Chen Feng's expression changed slightly. He quickly stood up and bowed. "Mr. Su." Mr. Su glanced at Chen Feng and said calmly, "Go to the finance department to settle your salary, then pack your things and leave." Chen Feng's expression froze. He said in astonishment, "Mr. Su, what do you mean?" "What do I mean?" Mr. Su glanced at him. "It's very simple. You're fired." Chen Feng stood there frozen, thinking he had misheard. He was fired? Fired without any warning? Beside him, Lin Qian was also slightly stunned, but a fleeting, ambiguous smile quickly appeared on her lips. To her, Chen Feng was just a backup plan. Of course, Chen Feng's qualifications were actually quite good. He had climbed to the position of HR director at the largest logistics company in Jiangxing at a relatively young age, and his annual salary was definitely in the hundreds of thousands. However, Lin Qian had high standards, especially after seeing Lin Qingxue with Han Shuo. Her standards became even higher. She felt that she was not much worse than Lin Qingxue and could also find someone like Han Shuo, or even better. Of course, their standard for measuring a man's worth was based on financial strength. "Mr. Su, what's going on?" Chen Feng couldn't care about Lin Qian's expression anymore. After a brief moment of shock, he quickly asked, "Mr. Su." Glanced at him indifferently and said, "Our company has been acquired. The new boss is a young man, and the first thing he said was to let you go. There's nothing I can do." Chen Feng wanted to ask more, but Mr. Su had already turned away and said, "I have things to do. You should know who you've offended." With that, he turned and left. Chen Feng slumped into a nearby chair. He had offended people, but none of them were powerful enough to acquire Shengshi. He died without knowing why. Meanwhile, after the acquisition was completed, with Zhou Qianqian's mediation, He Gang chose to stay with the company and continue to manage its operations, but now as a salaried employee rather than the owner. As for Yi Xian, he became a hands-off manager. This was good news for Yi Xin, who knew nothing about these matters. It was best to leave professional matters to professionals. When things were settled, Zhou Qianqian stood up and said, "Well, I've done my part in facilitating this deal, so I'll take my leave." Yi Xin also stood up and said, "I have some things to do as well. Let's go out together." Up until now, Zhou Qianqian had not mentioned anything about compensation. In fact, Yi Xin really wanted to appear in front of Lin Qian as the boss right now. But he had other matters to attend to and had to leave. The pretty woman with short hair had been coming to see him around 12 o'clock these past few days, and it was almost time. Zhou Qianqian adjusted her glasses and smiled sweetly, saying, "All right." The two of them walked out of the company, and Yi Xin exhaled, saying, "Manager Zhou, I don't know how to thank you, and I'll probably have a lot more to trouble you with in the future. How much do you think is appropriate for your compensation?" Zhou Qianqian smiled slightly and said, "Don't worry about compensation. You are a diamond cardholder of our bank. As long as you make a request, our bank will cooperate with you fully." Yi Xin was surprised to learn that diamond cardholders had such high privileges at Xinhai Bank. "Of course, if you really want to thank me, you can do me a favor and accompany me to a banquet tonight," Zhou Qianqian said with a sweet smile. "To put it simply, you can pretend to be my boyfriend." Yi Xin was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said, "That's no problem." Zhou Qianqian's eyes lit up slightly, and she nodded, saying, "You promised, so you can't back out. I'll call you tonight and come pick you up." Yi Xin nodded. As they talked, they reached the entrance. After saying goodbye, they each hailed a taxi and left. At 11:20 a.m., Yi Xin arrived at the construction site entrance on time. Sure enough, as soon as he reached the gate, he saw the short-haired girl carrying a lunchbox, walking out of the site with a disappointed look on her face. When she saw Yi Xin, her eyes lit up again, and she jogged over. "I thought you weren't coming," she said with a smile when she reached Yi Xin. "Yesterday I went to the bank to check my balance." "You weren't lying to me," Yi Xin said with a sigh of relief. "So, are you willing to come back with me?" the short-haired girl asked, her eyes shining. Yi Xin nodded and said, "Yes. Yes." The beautiful girl pumped her fist and said, "Night Watchman number 0 is finally returning to this world." "Night Watchman number 0? Yi Xin frowned and asked, "What does that mean?" "We are a secret unit, and we all have our own code names. Most are numbered, and the more powerful the person, the higher their ranking. You used to be Night Watchman number 0, which means the strongest weapon. Speaking of this," she added awkwardly, "but because you were missing for 3 years, many people thought you had died in the last major mission, so the title of number 0 now belongs to someone else. But I believe that once you recover your memory, you will be able to get it back soon." Yi Xin scratched his head, completely unable to understand what she was saying. He coughed dryly and asked, "What do I need to do to recover my memory?" "Well, I'll take you to see Dr. Zhe now," the short-haired girl said. "Dr. Zhe is the best doctor in our night watch, and one of the best in the world." Yi Xin nodded and said, "Okay. By the way, I still don't know your name." The girl was stunned for a moment, then scratched her head and said, "I'm currently number 66. As for my name, you should be able to remember it once you recover your memory." Yi Xin had a strange feeling. Using numbers as code names felt like calling for a masseuse. She hailed a taxi, and they got in. Their destination was not a hospital or a clinic, but a place very familiar to Yi Xin. The Garden District. Yes, their destination was the Garden District. "Because we were planning to persuade you to come back, we bought an apartment in the building next to yours. Dr. Zhe and I both live there," the short-haired girl said with a smile. Soon, they arrived at their destination. Dr. Zhe's name was Zhe Qiuyu, and she was a woman, which was different from what Yi Xin had imagined. He had thought Zhe Qiuyu would be an older person, but he was surprised when he saw her. She was very beautiful, even more so than beauties like Lin Qingxue, and she looked to be less than 30 years old, very young. When she saw Yi Xin, her expression was not very pleasant. She glanced at him coldly, raised her beautiful eyebrows, and asked, "Amnesia?" "I guess so," Yi Xin said. "Lie down on the sofa," Zhe Qiuyu said in a cold tone. "I'll go get something." With that, she turned and walked towards the bedroom. Yi Xin felt a little awkward, He coughed dryly and asked quietly, Um, did I owe Dr. Zhe money before? Not really, the short-haired girl said with a chuckle. It's just that when you were in the night watch, you kept confessing your love to Dr. Zhe and said you wouldn't marry anyone but her. When we came here and found you, we investigated your background and found out that you got married. Dr. Zhe seems a little angry. She like the old me? Yi Exine asked in surprise. Was he so amazing in the past that even a beauty of this level had feelings for him? Not really. Dr. Zhe has rejected you countless times, the short-haired girl said with a giggle. Yi Xin was speechless. Then why was she angry that he got married? Stop chattering, Zhiqiu said as she walked out. She took out a pocket watch from her pocket and said, Look at the watch. The pocket watch began to swing back and forth. Yi Xion's eyes followed the movement of the watch. Zhiqiu began to speak, her voice no longer cold, but incredibly gentle. Slowly, Yi Xion felt a wave of drowsiness wash over him, and he gradually closed his eyes. Meanwhile, the gentle murmur continued in his ears. You are Yi Xion, born in Linhai City. At the age of 18 you... As the voice guided him, images and countless memories began to surface in Yi Xion's mind. Countless memories began to surface in Yi Xion's mind. He wasn't originally from Jiangcheng, but from Linhai City, the young master of the Yi family. The Yi family was considered wealthy, though his branch of the family was secondary. Still, compared to most families, they were well off. At 18, he met an old man and, in his youth, was persuaded to join the night watchman. He stayed for 6 years. He demonstrated a terrifying talent for martial arts, earning a special merit within a year. By his 3rd year, he received the night watchman's highest honor, the Starlight Medal, and became number 0, also known as the God of Death, for his decisive and lethal efficiency during missions. 3 years ago, he, along with number 2 and number 7, received a secret mission to Jiangcheng. They were ambushed. Number 7 died on the spot. In the ensuing chaos, he and number 2 were separated. Yi Xin, carrying the mission item, fought his way out, covered in blood, but collapsed from his injuries soon after. He awoke in a hospital, saved by Lin Qingshue's father, who treated him well. Now he realized it was likely because Lin Qingshue's father had found something on him, since he was an important figure, and subsequently arranged for his daughter to marry him. As number 0, Yi Xian had amassed a fortune both domestically and abroad over those 6 years. The 1.2 billion on the diamond card was merely the tip of the iceberg. A gentle voice continued its murmur in his ear. Do you remember? You were once a figure who terrified the world, the light-bringer of the night watchman. Those who lurked in darkness would tremble at your name. You were number 0, the holy lord of the city of sin. You have countless lives on your hands, and you have saved countless lives. Countless scenes, countless memories flooded his mind. After an unknown amount of time, he slowly opened his eyes to a delicate face. Zhiqiu sat in a chair, a smirk playing on her lips as she saw him awaken. How is it? The short-haired girl hopped over. Yi Xian smiled at her, sat up, and ruffled her hair. I remember. 3 years, Xiaonan. You've become even more beautiful. You remember me? The short-haired girl's voice was filled with excitement. Yes, he remembered. This girl was Ming Xiaonan, whom he had personally brought into the night watchman. It was his first mission 9 years ago. Xiaonan was 12 then, her parents killed during the operation. He brought her back to the night watchman. Sighing, Yi Xian turned to Zhiqiu. Thank you, Dr. Zhiqiu snorted. Thank you? I didn't think you were capable of uttering those words. People change, Yi Xian smiled, then paused. How are the old folks? They're doing well, Ming Xiaonan said cheerfully, her dimples showing. Now that you've recovered your memory, this mission should be much easier. Yi Xian pondered. What is the mission? Blood Lotus, Zhiqiu said calmly. We've already lost 3 people. A chill ran through Yi Xian's eyes. If the Lin family saw this look, they would be shocked. For 3 years, he had been docile and hardworking. They thought he was a simple man. But now, upon hearing Blood Lotus, his eyes held an undeniable, chilling, killing intent. Have you found number 2? Yi Xian asked. Not yet. We haven't found number seven's body either, Zhichuyu replied. Blood Lotus's target is... Beep, beep, beep. His phone rang. It was Zhou Qianqian. He glanced at Zhichuyu and Ming Xiaonan, then answered. Hello, Manager Zhou. Where are you? I'm off work. You promised to pretend to be my boyfriend at the banquet. Give me the address. I'll pick you up. Zhou Qianqian's voice came through the phone. Yi Xian was surprised. He looked at the time. It was already 5:30 p.m. He had slept the entire afternoon. I'm at the Garden District. Just drive over. Call me beforehand so I can wait at the entrance, Yi Xian said. Okay, see you in 10 minutes. Zhou Qianqian hung up. I have something to do later. Can I get the key? I have nowhere to stay, so I'll just stay at your place tonight, Yi Xian coughed. Zhichuyu snorted and walked into the bedroom without a word. Ming Xiaonan's eyes lit up. She quickly found a key and handed it to him. Here's the key. By the way, what is Blood Lotus's target? Yi Xian asked. Zhang Wanwan, the daughter of Jiangqing's richest man, Ming Xiaonan replied. Yi Xian pondered. What's the plan? It's a bit complicated to explain right now. Go take care of your business first. We'll tell you everything when you get back, Ming Xiaonan said. Yi Xian nodded and headed out. After he closed the door, Ming Xiaonan sighed. Dr. Zhe, do you think he'll agree to our plan? He just got divorced. He'll agree whether he likes it or not, Zhichuyu said flatly, opening the bedroom door. Yi Xian, unaware of their plan, waited at the entrance of the district. Soon a red car stopped. The window rolled down, and Zhou Qianqian called out, Get in. Once inside, Yi Xian asked, What kind of banquet is it? A banquet for young professionals from Jiangqing's major companies. It's hosted by Jiangqing's richest man. Most of the top rich second generation will be there. Zhou Qianqian pouted. My bank sent me. I really dislike this kind of socializing. Those rich kids are. She sighed. So, I have to trouble you. It's no problem, Yi Xian said, touching his nose. Indeed, Zhou Qianqian was beautiful, single and capable. She must have many suitors. Zhou Qianqian glanced at Yi Xian's clothes, wanting to say something, but held back, starting the car instead. Half an hour later, they arrived at the Marriott Hotel, the best in Jiangqing. It was said that the average cost per person was over 3,000 yuan. Back when he was working at the construction site, Yi Xian had dreamed of bringing the Lin family here for a meal, hoping they would finally look up to him. Of course, it didn't matter anymore. He had seen far more extravagant settings. They parked and got out. Zhou Qianqian naturally took his arm. Get closer. Zhou Qianqian blushed slightly. Otherwise, they won't believe we're a couple. Yi Xian obliged, moving closer. They walked towards the hotel entrance, arm in arm. Just then, a voice called out, Manager Zhou. Yi Xian turned, his brow furrowing slightly. 3 people were walking towards them. He recognized 2 of them, Lin Qingxue and Han Shuo. He hadn't expected them to be here. Lin Qingxue, wearing a black evening gown, was also stunned to see him. Yi Xian, what are you doing here? Yi Xian looked at her and Han Shuo but didn't speak. Beside Han Shuo, a young man with gray hair frowned at Yi Xian. Manager Zhou? Who is this? Zhou Qianqian smiled. Let me introduce you. This is my boyfriend, Yi Xian. She then smiled at Han Shuo and the other man. You know Han Shuo. This is Chun Fan, the second young master of the Chun Corporation. All 3 of them were stunned. Han Shuo looked Yi Xian up and down. Manager Zhou, your taste is rather unique. My buddy chased you for 2 years, and you refused him, only to find this guy as your boyfriend? A recently divorced one. At that? Exactly. Yi Xian is just a bricklayer at a construction site. Manager Zhou, you're so beautiful and capable. Your standards can't be this low. Zhou Qianqian smiled. I think Yi Xian is great. I don't believe it, Qianqian. You're just trying to make me give up. Chun Fan looked at Yi Xian disdainfully. You paid him to be here, didn't you? Even if you did, you should have at least made him dress better. He's going to embarrass you at the banquet. Chun Fan turned to Yi Xian. Get away from Qianqian. Zhou Qianqian's expression changed, as if her ruse had been exposed. She subconsciously tightened her grip on Yi Xian's arm. Yi Xian looked up at the 3 of them, put his arm around Zhou Qianqian's waist, and said, Let's go inside. Zhou Qianqian was taken aback, then nodded. They turned and entered the hotel. That guy, Chun Fan's face was flushed with anger. Don't worry, Han Shuo smiled. He's just a bumpkin. Someone of Zhou Qianqian's caliber could never be interested in him. You seem to know him well? Chun Fan asked curiously. He's my ex-husband, a construction worker, a complete loser. Lin Qingxue looked at Yi Xian's back with disgust and a strange sense of annoyance. A toy that had been devoted to her for 3 years seemed to have been taken away, and she was unhappy. She was also unhappy with the way Yi Xian had looked at her. He's the loser you were talking about? Han Shuo asked, surprised. Then, a sneer spread across his face. I'll make sure he loses face at the banquet. It was called a banquet, but in reality, it was just a party. As a representative of Xinhai Bank, Zhou Qianqian's connections were obviously quite formidable. The moment she stepped into the banquet hall, she became the center of attention. Many people came up to greet her, and she politely returned their greetings with a smile. Most of these people would curiously glance at Yi Xian, a strange expression on their faces. There weren't many people in the banquet hall, only about 30 or 40. However, these 30 or 40 people almost encompassed all of the top second-generation rich kids in Jiang City. The banquet hall was filled with a dazzling array of top-notch food. Yi Xian looked around and coughed. It's okay if I take some food, right? Zhou Qianqian was taken aback for a moment, then smiled faintly. Help yourself. All right. Yi Xian nodded. He grabbed a plate, selected some food, and walked with Zhou Qianqian to a seat. He then sat down and started eating. They seemed somewhat out of place in the banquet hall. Most of the people inside were gathered in groups of 2 or 3, holding wine glasses and chatting, while Yi Xian was the only one eating. Zhou Qianqian didn't feel embarrassed. She got herself a drink and sat beside Yi Xian. Just then, Han Shuo, along with Lin Qingxue and Chun Fan, entered the banquet hall. They saw Yi Xian sitting there eating from afar. Chun Fan curled his lips and said, He's such a country bumpkin. These kinds of gatherings are for people to chat, see if there are any opportunities for cooperation, and expand their network. But him? He's just eating there. He's never seen the world, Lin Qingxue said disdainfully. Probably his first time at the Marriott Hotel. Never tasted the food here before. Wants to try it, I guess. Humph. Today I'll teach him what it means to be embarrassed, Chun Fan said with a cold sneer. He went to the side, got a glass of red wine, and walked straight towards Yi Xian and Zhou Qianqian. Standing in front of Yi Xian, who was focused on his food, a disdainful smile appeared on Chun Fan's lips. He spoke loudly. Manager Zhou, is this your boyfriend? Zhou Qianqian had already mentioned it at the door, but he brought it up again and spoke so loudly, clearly wanting to attract everyone's attention. As expected, as his voice faded, many people in the banquet hall turned their gaze towards them. Yi Xian raised his head and calmly glanced at Chun Fan. Zhou Qianqian smiled and said, Yes, I'll introduce him to everyone. This is my boyfriend, Yi Xian. A sinister smile flashed across Chun Fan's face. Wow, I didn't expect that the goddess in many of our hearts, the beautiful Ms. Qianqian from Xinhai Bank, would be taken by this brother. I guess many of us will be heartbroken. But looking at this brother's attire, it seems a bit out of place for this banquet. Zhou Qianqian frowned slightly. She looked at Yi Xian and found that his expression was still quite calm. In fact, Zhou Qianqian was also very curious about Yi Xian. The first time she met Yi Xian, he looked no different from a beggar. But this same person actually possessed a diamond card from Xinhai Bank. This wasn't something that could be obtained just with money. Looking at Yi Xian's calm face and recalling his previous attire and actions, she guessed that Yi Xian was probably low-key and didn't like to expose himself. She smiled faintly. He's just an ordinary person. Chun Fan laughed. He's too ordinary. By the way, Manager Zhou, did you hire someone online to pretend to be your boyfriend just to make us give up? This is a gathering hosted by Mr. Zhang. Not just anyone can come in, you know. Hey, I'm talking to you, kid. Seeing that Yi Xian remained silent, Chun Fan turned to him and said, As far as I know, you work on a construction site, right? Is hiring yourself out online your part-time job? How much can a guy like you make from pretending to be someone's boyfriend? At that moment, many people in the banquet hall burst into laughter. Chun Fan looked at Yi Xin with a half-smile and asked cheerfully, "Don't be so quiet, brothers, say something." Yi Xin picked up the plate on the table and stood up. He ignored Chun Fan and said to Zhou Qianqian, "Honey, it seems like there's a dog barking here. It's hard to eat in peace. Let's go somewhere else." With those words, the entire hall fell silent. Chun Fan's face turned dark instantly. His gaze suddenly turned cold, and he glared at Yi Xin. "You bastard. Who are you calling a dog? A bricklayer calling me out on my bullshit." Bang! At that moment, the banquet hall doors were pushed open, and a girl carrying a man in his 60s walked in. The moment they appeared, everyone's eyes turned towards them. "So beautiful!" Many girls exclaimed in unison. Yes, the girl at the door was very beautiful. She was nearly 7 meters tall, with a perfect figure and an angelic face. When she appeared in the hall, she almost instantly became the center of attention. Even Yi Xin couldn't help but be slightly surprised. This girl's looks and temperament were almost on par with Chichiu's. That man is the richest man in Jiang City, Jiang Zhenan, and the woman is his daughter, Jiang Wanwan. Zhou Qianqian explained to Yi Xin. "It's him." Yi Xin was secretly astonished. He actually knew this Jiang Zhenan. Zhou Qianqian looked at Yi Xin in surprise. "You know him?" "I have some impression of him." Yi Xin smiled. "Not very well. It's quite lively here. I heard some unpleasantness at the entrance just now." Jiang Zhenan had a gentle smile on his face as his gaze slowly swept across the young people present. However, when his gaze landed on Yi Xin, his expression suddenly changed. His gaze quickly returned, and his entire body trembled slightly. Then, to everyone's astonishment, he walked quickly towards Yi Xin. He walked up to Yi Xin, and under everyone's shocked gazes, thump! This richest man in Jiang City, the man who could make things happen with a wave of his hand, knelt down in front of Yi Xin with a thump. "It's you. We met once, and you saved me and disappeared. I wanted to repay you, but never had the chance. I didn't expect you to appear at my banquet. 3 years ago, I heard you were in Jiang City." Jiang Zhenan's voice trembled. But before he could finish, Yi Xin interrupted him. "You've mistaken me for someone else." The Night Watchmen were a secret organization of Yinxia, and ordinary people didn't know of their existence. But those who reached a certain status would have heard of them, and Jiang Zhenan had met Yi Xin once before. Yi Xin had saved him from the hands of Blood Lotus. At that time, he had heard the names Blood Lotus and Night Watchman. Later, he had signed a confidentiality agreement, not to mention these things to anyone. Yi Xin was worried that he might accidentally reveal these things if he continued speaking in his excited state. Jiang Zhenan, having reached the position of the richest man in Jiang City, was obviously very astute in reading people. He knew that Yi Xin didn't want to expose himself. His body trembled slightly, and he wiped the tears from his face. Then he stood up and said, I'm old. My eyes are failing me. I mistook you for someone else." Jiang Wanwan quickly helped him up. Her beautiful eyes swept over Yi Xin, a hint of curiosity in them. At this moment, Chun Fan finally breathed a sigh of relief. Just now, when Jiang Zhenan knelt, he almost peed his pants. Someone who could make the richest man in Jiang City kneel was not someone he could afford to offend. Now, hearing Jiang Zhenan say he had mistaken him, he spoke up. "That's right, Mr. Jiang. This guy is probably a boyfriend hired by Manager Zhou. He's just a bricklayer, here to freeload. You definitely mistook him. He's a loser." Jiang Zhenan wiped his tears, turned around, pointed at Chun Fan, then pointed at the door, and said in an unquestionable tone, "You. Get out." Chun Fan was stunned. "I heard you babbling outside. Since this friend was brought by Manager Zhou, he is a guest. I am hosting this banquet for the younger generation to interact, not for you to cause trouble and insult people. So, get out of here now." Jiang Zhenan's voice was cold. This. Chun Fan's face turned red, all the way to his neck. To be kicked out of such a gathering in front of everyone was too humiliating. "I said get out. Can't you hear me?" Jiang Zhenan's voice grew even colder. Chun Fan left the banquet hall, his face red all the way to his neck. He didn't dare to disobey Jiang Zhenan. Continuing to stay here shamelessly would only make him lose more face. After he left, a smile finally appeared on Jiang Zhenan's face. He said cheerfully, "Everyone continue. This old man will go next door first. I won't disturb your young people's interactions. I'll come back later to announce something." As he spoke, he glanced at Exan, who had already sat down again, not far away, and continued to eat. Then he walked out. Jiang Wanwan was also young, so naturally she stayed behind. After he left, the banquet hall returned to its lively atmosphere. Jiang Wanwan was instantly surrounded by several young people. Everyone began to talk about their own affairs, and of course, they also talked about Chun Fan's embarrassment, as well as Exan. Everyone seemed to have returned to normal, except for two people, of course. Lin Qingshue's brows were slightly furrowed. She had been watching from the sidelines. She wanted to see Exan make a fool of himself, but from beginning to end, Chun Fan kept bringing up Exan's shortcomings, while Exan's expression remained very calm. Something's not right. She felt a little uneasy looking at Exan sitting there not far away. "What's wrong?" Han Shuo looked at Lin Qingxue and asked. "Nothing." Lin Qingxue shook her head. Han Shuo chuckled and said, "I brought you to such a high-end place. You should give in to me tonight." "Oh," Lin Qingxue said coquettishly. "I'll take a few more photos and post them on my moments first. I think my friends will be so envious of me." "Thank you, dear. Let's talk about tonight later." The other person who was still a bit out of sorts was Zhou Qianxi. She was still sitting next to Exan, watching Exan, who was already eating his third serving of food, and became more and more curious. "Truly mysterious," she said with a smile on her lips. "How long will this banquet last? It's so boring. I'm already full," Exan said. "It should be over after Mr. Jiang comes to announce something." Zhou Qianxi leaned back on the sofa and smiled sweetly. "Hey, this is the most relaxing banquet for me. By the way, if there's another social event like this next time, I'll invite you, and you have to help me out." Exan nodded. "No problem. With good food and drinks, it's a great deal." While they were talking, the door of the banquet hall was pushed open again. Jiang Zhenan walked into the banquet hall with a microphone in his hand. "Everyone," he said, "you are all the young talents of Jiang City. The reason why I gathered you all here today is not only to provide an opportunity for everyone to interact, but I also have something to announce." Everyone looked at him. He smiled slightly, and his eyes fell on Jiang Wanwan, who was not far away. He said, "That is the marriage of my daughter, Jiang Wanwan." "What?" Everyone was stunned. "My daughter is already 25 and still single. As her father, I'm worried sick about it. So another purpose of this gathering is to hope that if anyone likes my daughter, they should pursue her boldly. I will definitely not interfere." Jiang Zhenan hadn't finished speaking. A petite figure instantly rushed through the crowd and snatched the microphone, saying, "Dad, don't talk nonsense. She's shy. She's shy." Jiang Zhenan said cheerfully, "What I just said definitely counts." Jiang Wanwan's pretty face turned red. Not far away, Exan was stunned. This was really her biological father. Hee. Zhou Qianxi covered her mouth and chuckled. "Mr. Jiang is very humorous in life, but don't be fooled by his appearance. When he's really fierce, everyone is afraid of him, especially in business. He's decisive and ruthless. That's why Chun Fan was so afraid of him just now." Exan smiled. After this farce, the gathering was coming to an end, and people gradually began to leave. When about half of them had left, Zhou Qianxi stood up and said, "Let's go too." At the entrance, Zhou Qianxi greeted Jiang Zhenan. Jiang Zhenan glanced at Exan, pursed his lips, and said nothing. The two left the banquet hall smoothly. At the hotel entrance, Zhou Qianxi smiled and said, "Where are you going? I can give you a ride." "You go ahead. I have something to do. I'll take a taxi," Exan said. Zhou Qianxi didn't ask further and nodded. "Okay. Thank you for today. If you need anything, just give me a call." Exan nodded. After Zhou Qianxi left, Exan went to the hotel entrance, intending to take a taxi. At this moment, a middle-aged man quickly caught up and said, "Mr. Yi." The man was a middle-aged man in a suit. He introduced himself. "I'm Mr. Jiang Zhenan's secretary. This is Mr. Zhang's business card. Mr. Zhang asked me to tell you to call him no matter what. Yi Xin calmly took the business card and nodded. Okay, I understand. Then he hailed a taxi and got in. He didn't go directly back to the Garden District, but headed to Yang Chang's house. He still had some things there. The most important thing, naturally, was the iron box. 3 years ago, for this iron box, 3 of the top 10 night watchmen were nearly killed, including him, the former number 0. As for what was in the iron box, in fact, he didn't know either. He was only given the task at that time and was not told what it was. Half an hour later, at 9 o'clock in the evening, Yi Xin arrived at Yang Chang's house. Standing at the door, Yi Xin found that the door was open. From the stairwell, Yang Chang's voice could be heard. Hello, brotherly. Are you still short of people over there? You're not? Sorry to bother you. If you're short of people, give me a call. Yeah, I'm free now. I have no work. Yang Chang was making a phone call. Obviously, he was calling around to find work. The reason why he chose to do it outside was probably that he didn't want his son, Yang Inin, to hear him. Yi Xin went up and found a lot of cigarette butts on the corridor. Yang Chang was a truly simple migrant worker. He didn't have the same kind of identity transformation as Yi Xin. Losing that job, to him, was equivalent to losing his livelihood. He didn't even have Yi Xin's great strength. For his son Yang Inin's chemotherapy expenses, he almost did his best. Seeing Yi Xin, Yang Chang threw away the cigarette but in his hand, stomped it out and said, I thought you weren't coming back today. Damn it, I called several construction sites, and they're all full. If I can't find work, next month's Inin's chemotherapy fees. Yi Xin smiled slightly. I have a job. Do you want to try with me tomorrow? Oh? Yang Chang's eyes lit up. Which construction site? Not a construction site, it's Shengshi Company, Yi Xin said. That logistics company? Yang Chang's expression moved slightly. But doing logistics requires running around, right? If I leave, no one will take care of it. You don't have to run around, Yi Xin said. Physical labor? Like loading and unloading goods? How's the pay? Yang Chang asked quickly. It's not physical labor either. Let's meet at their company entrance at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. As for the salary, if you're not satisfied, you don't have to do it, Yi Xin said with a smile. Yang Chang hesitated for a moment, then nodded. All right, anyway, I can't find work for the time being. It's not bad to try my luck. But how do you know someone from their company? It's a coincidence, Yi Xin said with a smile. He knew that if he told the truth, Yang Chang wouldn't believe it. Yang Chang didn't ask further. With this news from Yi Xin, his mood seemed to have improved a lot. He tilted his head and looked at Yi Xin. Are you sleeping here tonight? No. I found a place to stay. I came to get my things, Yi Xin said with a smile. Okay, let's go in and get them. Be quiet later. Inin is still doing his homework. Don't disturb him, Yang Chang said. Yi Xin nodded. After getting his things, Yi Xin returned to Zhiqiyu and Lin Xiaonan's residence in the Garden District. When he returned, the two were not there, obviously out. Night watchmen, as the name suggests, had to guard the peace at night. The next morning at 8 o'clock, Yi Xin went out early. At 8:30, he arrived at the entrance of Shengshi Company. When he arrived, a black car happened to stop, and Yi Gang got out. Seeing Yi Xin, he waved and said, Yo, mister. Yi, so early. I came here today because I have something to do. I usually don't come. I'm quite confident in your management of the company, Yi Xin said. Let's go up together. I have something to tell you. He was talking about arranging for Yang Chang to work here. After hearing this, Yi Gang nodded. Don't worry, I'll arrange it. What about the salary? 1 million a year. Yi Xin said calmly. No matter what position, give him this price. Of course, you can ask him to keep it confidential. Yi Gang nodded, thought for a moment, and then said, By the way, you may need to take a photo and put it on the company wall today, so that the people in the company know that you are the boss. Otherwise, it would be embarrassing if you can't enter your own company's door next time. Yi Xin smiled slightly. All right. Taking advantage of this time, Yi Gang asked someone to take a photo of Yi Xin. At 9 o'clock, Yi Xin's phone rang. It was Yang Chang. He answered the phone, said a few words, and ran downstairs. At the entrance, Yang Chang was standing there, looking inside nervously. The security guard had naturally been replaced. He also saw He Gang personally taking EXIN in and didn't stop them. Come. At the entrance, EXIN waved to Yang Chong. EXIN? At this moment, a beautiful woman ran over to the entrance. She swiped her card at the door, looked at EXIN, and her face showed disgust. Yes, it was Lin Qian. What are you doing here? Weren't you fired? She said, then glared. The person who fired me was fired, and I was hired back, EXIN said with a smile. Oomph. Being a security guard and so proud, can you earn 5,000 a month? A useless security guard, Lin Qian cursed. Inside the security booth, the security guard wanted to curse. Did you see my sister's moments yesterday? Han Shua took her to the gathering of Jiang City's top richest people at the Marriott Hotel. You probably couldn't afford to eat there once with your monthly salary, Lin Qian said to EXIN disdainfully. Of course, my sister probably deleted your WeChat long ago. You definitely don't know. EXIN looked at her and found it a bit funny. Hurry up and get out of the way. I'm unlucky whenever I see you. I fell off my bike when I met you the day before yesterday, and my boss was fired when I met you yesterday, so I couldn't sleep in this morning. You're a jinx. You deserve to be dumped by my sister. Look at her life now. I'm so envious, Lin Qian said, pushing EXIN away and walking into the building. Looking at her back, EXIN thought with a smile, you're probably quite unlucky today, especially when you see my photo in the boss's column. Watching Lin Qian's retreating figure, EXIN smiled faintly and didn't pay much attention to it. However, Yang Chong said somewhat speechlessly, I didn't expect Lin Qian to be working here too. Won't we be humiliated by her every day from now on? EXIN was taken aback for a moment, then smiled slightly and said, just ignore her. Besides, who knows who will be humiliating who? He had already discussed all the arrangements regarding Yang Chong's position, salary, and everything else with He Gang. His position would be the recently vacated HR director. Of course, he didn't need to do anything, just lie down and relax. Are we here to be security guards? Yang Chong asked again. EXIN scratched his head and said, I don't know either. Let's see what their arrangements are after we go in. Yang Chong was skeptical as they entered the main entrance and headed upstairs. Soon, they reached the 6th floor, outside a door marked General Manager's office. Holy crap, Yang Chong said, almost wetting himself. What are we here for? Does the General Manager need to see us personally? Is this an interview? Just treat it as an interview, EXIN said with a smile. Don't be too nervous. By the way, did you bring the bank card and ID I asked you to bring? I did. Yang Chong nodded, his voice trembling slightly. Then let's go in, EXIN said. Aren't you coming? Yang Chong became even more nervous. EXIN smiled and said, I don't need to. Don't worry, this General Manager is very easy to talk to. Oh. Yang Chong let out a breath and knocked on the door somewhat tremblingly. Come in. He Gang's voice came from inside. Yang Chong then walked into the room, trembling. Seeing Yang Chong's appearance, He Gang smiled and said, Yang Chong, right? Sit down, don't be nervous. Hello, mister. Yang Chong didn't dare to sit down. In fact, he was just a country boy who had mostly interacted with people from the lower classes. He didn't think much of it when people mentioned bosses and such, but when he actually had to face one, and it might involve whether he could put food on the table in the future, he became genuinely nervous. Not bad, I like him. He Gang said cheerfully, You're hired. Oh? Yang Chong was stunned. Although he had never been interviewed before, don't they usually ask a lot of questions during interviews, as seen on TV? He hadn't been asked a single question. He Gang smiled and said, That's how I am. I hire people based on first impressions. You look honest, and I like that very much. How about this? Our company happens to be short of an HR director. You take the position. There's not much to do, just signing documents and such. As for the annual salary, 1 million, do you think it's enough? What? Hearing 1 million, Yang Chong's legs went weak, and he almost fell to the ground. He leaned against the wall, his eyes wide with shock as he looked at He Gang. He's not asking me to sell drugs, is he? At this moment, all sorts of thoughts ran through Yang Chong's mind. This salary is too high, this job. I dare not take it. I'm just an honest person. For a moment, Yang Chong didn't know what to say. Outside, the corners of Yi Xian's mouth twitched. This guy was such a coward. But obviously, He Gang's eloquence was quite outstanding. Under his patient persuasion, Yang Chong finally believed that this was a very legitimate job. It's just that when he came out, he was still dizzy. Looking at Yi Xian, he had many questions he wanted to ask. But at this time, He Gang also came out and said, "How about this? I'll take you to the HR department to complete the onboarding procedures, and then I'll show you around the HR department." The HR director is equivalent to the second in command of the HR department. By the way, have you prepared your bank card and other things? The finance department will prepay you half of your salary later. The HR director position is paid annually, half in advance, and the remaining half is paid monthly. What about him? Yang Chong pointed at Yi Xian. He Gang smiled at Yi Xian, didn't say anything explicitly, and pulled Yang Chong towards the HR department downstairs. Seeing Yang Chong's cowardly appearance, Yi Xian found it a bit funny. He touched his nose and looked at the departing Yang Chong, thinking, with this salary and this advance payment, an Anne's surgery fee should be covered. With that, he walked down the building. As for work, he naturally didn't need to work. He was just a hands-off boss. He didn't know the privileges of the Shanghai Bank Diamond Card before he recovered his memory. But now he was very clear. The Diamond Card allowed him to mobilize enormous funds from Shanghai Bank, and he could also use Shanghai Bank's financial team for free. In other words, Zhou Cici's help to him before was within the privileges of his bank card. Of course, Zhou Cici didn't treat him badly because of his attire, which made Yi Xian have a good impression of her. With such a top-notch financial team, he didn't worry about Yi Gang doing anything with the finances. Yi Xian thought as he walked downstairs. On the first floor, near the entrance, several people were busy putting a photo on the boss's column. Yi Xian glanced at it as he passed by, and the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Then he didn't linger any longer, went outside, hailed a taxi, and headed straight for the Garden District. At this time, Ming Xiaonan and Zhi Chuyu should be back. He could ask them about the specific task. Just as Yi Xian was leaving, in the HR department of Shengshi Company, everyone was busy working. He Gang brought Yang Chong in and clapped his hands, saying, "Everyone, please put down what you're doing for a moment." After yesterday, everyone in the company knew that the company had been fully acquired and that He Gang had gone from being the boss to an employee. But everyone still respected He Gang very much. Lin Qian, who was sitting at her desk, looked up. She saw Yang Chong standing next to He Gang and was slightly stunned. Isn't he the person who was following Yi Xian? His clothes are so shabby. Why is he next to the boss? Is he the boss's newly hired bodyguard? Could it be that Yi Xian is also the boss's bodyguard and not a security guard? Lin Qian wondered. After all, she could understand Yi Xian being a bodyguard. In her opinion, although Yi Xian was very useless, he had a lot of brute strength. He should be okay as a bodyguard. Just then, He Gang spoke. "Let me introduce our new HR director, Yang Chong." "Come, Yang Chong. Introduce yourself to everyone." Yang Chong had never spoken in front of so many people before. He was a little nervous, but he still braced himself and said, "Hello everyone, my name is Yang Chong. I hope we can get along well in the future." And beside him, Lin Qian's mind exploded. This poor guy, who was covered in dirt and moving bricks next to Yi Xian 2 days ago, suddenly came to work at their company, and he became her immediate superior? Lin Qian felt that her worldview had collapsed. "All right, I have other things to do." Xiao Zheng, show Director Yang around the HR department. He Gang said to someone not far away. "Okay, mister." A young man stood up. The HR department returned to its usual busy state. Of course, most people were discussing Yang Chong's arrival. And Lin Qian sat in her seat dazed. She felt that something was not quite right. Yang Chong came as the HR director. Did he have some kind of relationship with the boss? Did he introduce Yi Xian? Then, what was Yi Xian doing at the company? Yi Xian had said before that he would make her regret it. Could it be that he came to work at Shengshi Company? Many thoughts were emerging in her mind. "Hey, Lin Qian." At this moment, a woman next to Lin Qian spoke. "Have you met our new boss?" Lin Qian was a little annoyed. She shook her head and said, "No, I haven't." "Why?" The one who could acquire our company must be from some big enterprise, right? At least a 40 or 50-year-old man. You're overthinking it, the woman said mysteriously. Didn't I just go out for a while? When I came back, I saw the new boss's photo on the wall. He's not old, looks only in his 20s. A rich second generation? Lin Xian's expression changed, and even a glimmer of excitement appeared in her eyes. Yi Xian was unaware of everything that was happening in the HR department. He took a taxi back to his residence in the Garden District. Coincidentally, just as he arrived at the entrance, he met by Lian Xiang, who was returning home from grocery shopping. Yi Xian, why are you still coming to the Garden District? Bai Lianxiang naturally had nothing good to say when she saw Yi Xian. She glared at Yi Xian and said, Are you still not giving up? You signed the papers. Qing Xue and I have nothing to do with you anymore. Get out of here quickly. Don't come here and be an eyesore. Yi Xian smiled inwardly. Lin Qingshue's father, a reasonable and good man, had married such a woman. He shook his head, not intending to bother with her, and walked towards the gate. Stop right there! Bai Lianxiang screamed. What are you doing? If you continue like this, I'll call the property management to kick you out. After the divorce, I bought another house in the Garden District and am now living here. Is that not allowed? Yi Xian glanced at her and said, Oh? Bai Lianxiang was stunned for a moment. First, she was taken aback by what Yi Xian said. Her instinctive reaction was, How could you possibly afford to buy a house here? You gave me all your monthly salary. Second, she didn't expect Yi Xian to dare to talk to her like that. In the past, Yi Xian wouldn't even dare to breathe loudly in front of her. After regaining her senses, her heart was filled with rage. You stop right there, she screamed. How could you possibly afford a house here? She rushed towards the gate, chasing after Yi Xian. Naturally, she couldn't catch up to Yi Xian. She thought Yi Xian couldn't afford to buy a house here, and his reappearance in the Garden District was likely to take revenge on her and her mother. So she chased after him, but after a few steps, she realized she couldn't catch up. At the same time, Yi Xian didn't enter the building where her apartment was, but walked into another building. She breathed a sigh of relief and muttered, That loser. Yi Xian didn't bother with Bai Lianxiang. He was grateful to Lin Qingshue's father, but after the experiences of the past 3 years, not taking revenge on the mother and daughter was already his limit. If it were his former self? Entering the elevator, he returned to Zhiqiu's and Ming Xiaonan's apartment. Opening the door, he smelled a delicious aroma. TSK, TSK. I get to eat DR. Just cooking again. I haven't had it in 3 years. I've missed it so much, Yi Xian said with a smile. Besides her superb medical skills, Zhiqiu was also an excellent cook. Zhiqiu glanced at him, placed a dish on the table, and asked, Where did you run off to this morning? I had something to take care of, Yi Xian said cheerfully, sitting down at the table. Ming Xiaonan quickly served him a bowl of rice. Yi Xian picked up a piece of meat, put it in his mouth, and said with relish, Delicious. Dr. I think you'd be better off opening a restaurant. Dealing with dead people all day doesn't match your looks and temperament. Zhiqiu gave him a look, sat down, and said, Let's talk business. Oh, Yi Xian nodded. Tell me about the details of this operation. This isn't the first time Blood Lotus has targeted wealthy individuals. According to the information I've gathered, they've dispatched at least 5 red card assassins this time, Zhiqiu said calmly. Yi Xian raised an eyebrow, a hint of disdain in his smile. Red cards? A bunch of trash. Do you know their location? I'll go take care of them. That's the key point. This time, Blood Lotus's operation is very secretive. Their target is Jiang Wanwan, but based on their past behavior, their ultimate goal is probably to use Jiang Wanwan to threaten Jiang Zhenan into joining their organization, Zhiqiu said calmly while eating. We've already lost 3 night watchmen while investigating them. Yi Xian frowned and asked, What's your plan? Zhiqiu glanced at Yi Xian and said, You don't need to worry about this. We'll call you when we need you. All right, Yi Xian nodded. Beside them, Ming Xiaonan blinked, a faint, almost imperceptible smile appearing on her lips. At Shengshi Company, it was lunchtime, and many people were heading downstairs to eat. Of course, some had brought their lunch from home. Lin Xian didn't usually bring lunch. In the past, there were always many men in the company who would invite her to lunch, as she was considered one of the most beautiful women in the company, if not the most beautiful. Among them, Chen Feng had invited her the most. Although Chen Feng had left, there were still many who invited her to lunch. Sure enough, as soon as it was 12 o'clock, a colleague from her department stood up and said, "Lin Xian, want to grab lunch together?" Lin Xian had been in a daze all morning. Yang Chang's arrival and what Xin was up to had filled her with curiosity. Hearing her colleague's invitation, she smiled sweetly and said, "Sure. This is a good opportunity to check out the new boss. I heard he's young and bought our company outright, and even made Mr. He obedient. He must be some top-tier rich second-generation heir. If I can get him to chase me, I'll have a man even better than Han Shua," Lin Xian thought to herself. Then, the two of them headed downstairs. Along the way, they heard many discussions. The new boss is so young. Yeah, his surname is Yi, and he's so rich. I've never heard of him before. I wonder if he's single. Amidst the discussions about the new boss, Lin Xian and her male colleague walked downstairs. The colleague said with a smile, "How about we have spicy hot pot? The one near the company is pretty good." Whatever, Lin Xian said, but she was disdainful inside. She was someone who would be eating at the Marriott Hotel every meal in the future. As for this male colleague, he was just a spare tire. Don't refuse, don't accept. I'll take the benefits. When she reached the first floor, she noticed many people stopping to look at the photo wall. That was where the photos of all the company's management were displayed. She also leaned over and looked at the first row. There was only one photo in the first row, but when she saw it, her face suddenly changed and she exclaimed, "How is that possible?" Yes, she was stunned. In the photo for the position of the boss, Xin's photo was prominently displayed. Her exclamation made everyone turn to look at her. Lin Xian swallowed hard, her gaze falling on the name. When she clearly saw the words Xin, her eyes widened and she couldn't help but take 2 steps back. If it were just the appearance, there might be a resemblance, but the appearance and the name being exactly the same was simply impossible. At this moment, Lin Xian's mind was blown. She finally understood why Yang Chang had become her immediate superior. It was all because Xin had arranged it, but she couldn't understand how it could be Xin, that loser who worked on construction sites, who had nothing but brute strength. Impossible. Impossible. If he were this rich, he wouldn't have worked on construction sites, and he wouldn't have been bullied at home for 3 years. I must be going crazy. Lin Xian kept shaking her head. Lin Xian, what's wrong? Her male colleague who was going to invite her to lunch asked. Lin Xian shook her head and said, "Nothing. I'm not feeling well, so I won't go to lunch with you. I need to go upstairs and rest." Not feeling well? The colleague asked quickly. Where does it hurt? Do you need to see a doctor? Lin Xian shook her head, ignored her colleague, and turned to go upstairs. She felt that this day had been too unlucky, completely overturning her world. In the Garden District, after lunch, Ming Xiaonan and Zhi Qiyu went back to their rooms to sleep. Xin lay on the sofa and watched videos for a while when his phone suddenly rang. He picked it up and saw that it was an unfamiliar number. He answered, "Hello. Hello, mister." "Yi, this is Jiang Jinan," the voice on the other end said. Before Xin could speak, he quickly added, "I got your number from Manager Zhou at Xinhai Bank. I gave you my business card yesterday, but you never called, so I asked Manager Zhou for your number. I hope you don't mind." Xin thought for a moment and remembered that there was such a thing. "What is it?" Xin asked. Jiang Jinan cleared his throat and said, "Nothing much. You saved my life, and I've always wanted to thank you in person. So I'd like to invite you to dinner at 6 p.m. at the top floor of the Marriott Hotel. There are also some things I'd like to discuss with you." "No problem," Xin nodded. After hanging up, Xin exhaled, sat cross-legged, and began to meditate and adjust his breathing. He had neglected his martial arts for 3 years. It wasn't until 5:30 p.m. that Xin opened his eyes, exhaled, washed up, got up, and took a taxi to the Marriott Hotel. It was dinner time, and the entrance of the Marriott Hotel was bustling with people. Most of them were the elite of Jiang City. Those who could afford to eat here had considerable incomes. For example, Yi Xian ran into Han Shuo and Chun Fan again. The two were standing at the entrance. Chun Fan was looking expectantly at a spot not far away. Han Shuo, you're not lying to me, are you? Lin Qingshua's best friend is really just as good as her. Chun Fan asked expectantly. I've seen her, but whether you can get her or not is up to you, Han Shuo said with a smirk. Chun Fan swallowed and said, if she could be Lin Qingshua's best friend, she's probably a gold digger too. I'm good at dealing with women like that. When we get tired of them, we can even swap. Hearing this, Han Shuo also smiled. Hearing this, a cold glint flashed in Yi Xian's eyes. Lin Qingxue was indeed a gold digger and had treated him very badly. But regardless, she was in name Yi Xian's ex-wife. Any man who heard such words would feel a ripple in his heart. Moreover, no matter what, Lin Qingshua's father had saved Yi Xian's life. He exhaled, walked up, and said lightly, Han Shuo, if you dare to do such a thing, you'll be finished. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Han Shuo and Chun Fan both looked over. Han Shuo narrowed his eyes and said, Tisk, it's you. What? Are you going to put on a show of love for me? Prove that you still love Lin Qingxue? Unfortunately, no matter what, you can only be a simp. 3 years, and you couldn't even touch Lin Qingshue's hand. Yet you're still so devoted to her. Simps are really something. Han Shuo, why are you wasting your breath on this loser? If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have been so embarrassed yesterday. I'll find someone to beat him to death. Chun Fan said, narrowing his eyes. He then took out his phone. At this time, Han Shuo shook his head and said, Lin Qingxue and the others are here. Yes, not far away, Lin Qingxue and another beautiful woman walked over. Yi Xian also knew this woman. Before he and Lin Qingxue got divorced, she often came to their house to play. Her name was Zhou Yu, Lin Qingshue's best friend. What are you doing here? Seeing Yi Xian, Lin Qingshue's gaze suddenly turned cold. Are you following me? My mom said you wanted the Garden District again today. Zhou Yu said disdainfully. Yi Xian, you're so shameless. Qingxue has already divorced you, and you're still pestering her? Be a man, okay? Yi Xian didn't speak to the two women, but simply said to Han Shuo, remember what I just said. After saying that, he walked directly into the Marriott Hotel. Are you Mr. Yi? After entering, a waiter immediately came over and asked. Yi Xian nodded. At this time, the waiter took out a card and said, the elevator is on the left. Swipe the card to press the floor. Someone will show you the way upstairs. Okay. Yi Xian took the card and nodded. The first 6 floors of the Marriott Hotel were banquet halls. The floors above the 6th were restaurants, and the higher the floor, the more expensive it was. The top floor was not open to the public, and only a few people could go up. To go up to the 7th floor or above, you needed to swipe the corresponding card to use the elevator. Each floor had a different card. Yi Xian walked to the elevator entrance by himself. At this time, Chun Fan and the other 3 also walked over. Lin Qingxue frowned. At this time, the elevator arrived. Chun Fan and the others quickly got in. Beep! Chun Fan swiped his card and pressed the 10th floor. Then he looked at Yi Xian with a half smile and said, the average consumption on the 10th floor is about 8,000. That should be about a month's salary for you, right? Oh, don't say that, Zhou Yu said. Not necessarily. Construction work is all odd jobs. Sometimes they might not have work for a month or 2. Seeing them singing the same tune, Yi Xian didn't bother to respond. Beep! He silently swiped his card and pressed the top floor on the elevator. The elevator became silent in an instant. Zhou Yu and Chun Fan, who had been mocking Yi Xian, thought they were seeing things. They blinked, confirming that Yi Xian had indeed pressed the button for the top floor. Then, their mouths fell open slightly, their eyes filled with disbelief. This was the 10th floor of the Marriott Hotel, which was not open to the public. Only those with extremely close connections, the most elite group in Jiangcheng, were allowed to go there, including Lin Qingxue and Han Shuo. Ding dong! After a while, the elevator stopped. The doors opened, and 2 beautiful waitresses at the entrance greeted them with sweet smiles. Welcome to the 10th floor of the Marriott Hotel. The four of them were still somewhat stunned. Yi Xian smiled and said, Aren't you getting off? Only then did they come back to their senses. Chun Fan swallowed hard. Han Shuo, however, smiled and said, Looks like you left a deep impression on Zhou Qianqian yesterday. She even introduced you to others. His implication was that Yi Xian was still hired by someone, and the person who hired him this time was likely from the most elite circle in Jiangxing. Have you really decided to live off a woman from now on? Lin Qingshua's expression changed slightly as she said this. Looks like these rich women don't have good taste either. Liking someone like you. Lin Qingshua's best friend, Zhou Yu, sneered from beside her. Yi Xian raised his eyes and said indifferently, Which is more disgusting, living off a woman or being kept? What do you mean, daring to talk to me like that? Lin Qingshua's face instantly filled with anger. Yes, for the past 3 years, Yi Xian had never dared to talk back to her. Always submissive. When you bully someone for a long time, it becomes a habit. When that person suddenly starts to resist, you become furious. You should get off now. Yi Xian looked at them and said calmly. Han Shuo looked at Yi Xian and sneered. Humph. Just a piece of trash mooching a meal off others. What are you pretending for? Come and show off to me when you can afford to dine at the Marriott Hotel yourself. With that, he stepped out of the elevator. Yes, from beginning to end, they didn't believe that Yi Xian could come to this place on his own. After the elevator doors closed, Zhou Yu cursed. That guy, he dares to talk back to you after your divorce. Lin Qingshua's expression was still unpleasant. She was very unhappy with Yi Xian's attitude. What bothered her most was that, after their divorce, Yi Xian seemed to be doing better than her. He had come to the Marriott Hotel twice, and this time, he even went to the top floor. Han Shuo patted her hand and said, Don't be angry. It's not worth getting upset over a loser like him. He's just using someone else's connections. Lin Qingxua gritted her teeth and asked, Honey, can we eat on the top floor? Han Shuo's mouth twitched. Yi Xian didn't know, nor did he care about their reactions. After regaining his memories, his perspective had changed. If he hadn't regained his memories, his reaction to those wealthy people probably wouldn't have been much different from Yang Chang's reaction to He Hao. Ding dong! The elevator stopped on the top floor, and the doors opened. A beautiful waitress was standing at the entrance. Seeing Yi Xian, she gave a professional smile, bowed, and said, Mr. Yi, hello. Mr. Zhang has been waiting for you. Please follow me. As she spoke, she half bowed and gestured for him to follow. Yi Xian looked down from his vantage point and saw a glimpse of her cleavage, which was quite full. He coughed lightly, looked away, and walked forward. Soon, they arrived at a private room. When the door opened, 2 people were sitting inside. Besides Jiang Zhenan, Jiang Wanwan was also there. Seeing Yi Xian walk in, Jiang Wanwan was slightly stunned at first, and then her pretty face showed a look of curiosity. Yes, since she was a child, she had never seen her father be so respectful to anyone. Not even the top tycoons in Yinxia had ever made him kneel. But she clearly remembered the excited look on her father's face when he saw Yi Xian yesterday. Moreover, Yi Xian was so young. 0. Jiang Zhenan was about to speak. Yi Xian said, Just call me Yi Xian. In their previous encounter, Yi Xian was on a mission, and those who were with him at the time called him 0. Jiang Zhenan didn't know Yi Xian's name. All right, Yi Xian. Jiang Zhenan stood up and was about to kneel again. Yi Xian quickly helped him up and said, Uncle Jiang, there's no need for this. It was my duty to save you back then. You don't have to take it to heart. Sigh. If it weren't for you, I would probably be dead. Jiang Zhenan was extremely excited to hear Yi Xian call him uncle. That was my duty, Yi Xian said with a calm smile. Jiang Zhenan stood up straight and said, Please have a seat. Yi Xian smiled slightly and sat down. Jiang Zhenan followed and said, Let me introduce you. This is my daughter, Jiang Wanwan. I should have introduced her to you last time. This is... I know Yi Xian's sister Qianqian's boyfriend. We met yesterday, Jiang Wanwan said. Judging from her address, she seemed to know Zhou Qianqian and had a good relationship with her. Don't be disrespectful. He's your father's savior, Jiang Zhenan quickly said sternly. Jiang Wanwan pouted and didn't take it to heart. Jiang Zhenan's face showed anger. Yi Xian quickly smiled and said, Uncle Jiang, you don't have to be like this, just be casual. Actually, to be honest, I'm not Zhou Qianqian's boyfriend. Zhou Qianqian doesn't like being pestered by rich second-generation heirs, so she asked me to stand in for her. So you were indeed hired by Sister Qianqian? Jiang Wanwan asked with a sly look in her eyes. You can understand it that way, Yi Xian said with a smile. At this time, Jiang Zhenan's eyes lit up slightly, and he said, Then doesn't that mean you're actually single? What do you think of Wanwan? Wanwan is also single now. Why don't you two give it a try? Dad! Hearing this, Jiang Wanwan's face turned completely red. Yi Xian was also stunned. This Jiang Zhenan. How eager was he to marry off his daughter? He tried to matchmake her with everyone he met. Yi Xian coughed dryly and changed the subject. Let's eat first. Jiang Zhenan then remembered, and he quickly said to the outside, Serve the food. One after another, exquisite dishes were brought to the table. At this time, Jiang Zhenan said, By the way, Yi Xian, you seem to have some conflict with Chun Fan? I know about this. Chun Fan has been pursuing Sister Qianqian for a long time. Yesterday, Yi Xian appeared as Sister Qianqian's boyfriend. So Chun Fan must be unhappy, Jiang Wanwan interjected. Jiang Zhenan's eyes narrowed. Most of these rich second-generation heirs are Wan Kuzadi. Do you want me to teach him a lesson? Yi Xian shook his head. No need to bother. Jiang Zhenan nodded. He knew clearly what terrifying power this person in front of him possessed. A mere Chun Fan was indeed nothing. If you need any help in Jiangcheng, be sure to tell me. Jiang Zhenan said, I will do my best to help you. Yi Xian pondered for a moment and said, Speaking of which, I do have something I need to trouble you with. Oh? Hearing that Yi Xian needed help, Jiang Zhenan didn't show any sign of difficulty. Instead, his face lit up with excitement. He quickly asked, What do you need me to do? Yi Xian coughed dryly and said, Actually, it's nothing much. I just hope that in the future, you can take care of Shengshe Company and business. After all, you are the richest man in Jiang City. Just a little bit of business from you will be enough to support Shengshe, a logistics company. Jiang Zhenan didn't ask any further questions and nodded quickly. That's a trivial matter. No problem at all? Beside them, Jiang Wanwan was stunned once again. She had seen her father negotiate with other company bosses and knew what kind of person he was in the business world. He had never been so generous before. What's this guy's background? Just because he saved my dad once, he has my dad completely wrapped around his finger? Jiang Wanwan wondered, becoming increasingly curious about Yi Xian. Yi Xian nodded in thanks, and then the three began to eat normally. The food at the Marriott Hotel was indeed top-notch, and the taste was quite good. Time passed by unknowingly. 8 o'clock in the evening, in an abandoned factory in the suburbs of Jiang City. Bang! Ming Xiaonan kicked open the iron door in front of her and rushed into the room. She was wearing a tight-fitting black uniform that perfectly outlined her exquisite figure. On her back, she carried 2 knives, one long and one short. It was completely different from her usual girl-next-door image. This was the standard equipment for a night watcher. How is it? Behind her, Zhichuyu, who was dressed similarly, also jumped into the factory and asked. After a moment, their eyes fell on the distance, and their faces changed slightly. There, with dim lighting, a man also dressed as a night watcher lay on the ground. But he was no longer breathing. This is already the 4th person. Zhichuyu's eyes were somewhat unsightly as she said, Let them handle it. Let's go back to our posts. Don't alert the enemy. Everything goes according to plan. I'm just afraid that Brother Yi Xian won't cooperate. Ming Xiaonan pursed her lips and said, He just got divorced and... Zhichuyu directly interrupted her, her tone cold as she said, He dares not to cooperate. After dinner, Yi Xian had planned to leave, but Jiang Zhenan seemed to really want to set him up with Jiang Wanwan. Jiang Zhenan smiled and said, You two are both young. It's still early. Why don't you go out and have some fun? Didn't they say that a large bar opened up around here? Young people love to go there. Wanwan, take Yi Xian out to have some fun. I'll be going now. With that, he opened the door and slipped away. Dad, Jiang Wanwan initially wanted to refuse, But then she suddenly thought about trying to get some information about Yi Xian's background. She tilted her head, a smile appearing on her pretty face, and asked, "All right, it's still early anyway. Shall we go to the bar and have some fun?" Yi Xian thought that he had nothing to do anyway, and with a beautiful woman accompanying him, he nodded and said, "Sure." A sly smile appeared on Jiang Wanwan's face. The two quickly left the hotel, and Jiang Wanwan led Yi Xian towards the bar. Mingmei Bar was the largest bar in Jiang City. It was said that the owner of this bar, Wang Jun, used to be a gangster. Although he had come above ground, even now, no one in Jiang City was willing to provoke him. In this bar, there were almost no troublemakers, so many young people were willing to come. When they arrived at the entrance of the bar, bursts of noise and heavy music were already coming from inside. The arrival of a beauty of Jiang Wanwan's level quickly attracted a lot of attention as they entered the bar. They got a booth, and Jiang Wanwan ordered a lot of drinks. The two sat down. As soon as they sat down, Jiang Wanwan said, "Well, you have a drink first. I'm going to the restroom." Jiang Wanwan naturally wasn't going to the restroom. She ran to the restroom, took out her phone, and made a call. "Hey, Xiaowei, come quickly. I'm at Mingmei Bar. Come and dance." "I don't believe you. You never go to bars." A girl's skeptical voice sounded from the other end of the phone. "I'm really at Mingmei Bar. Can't you hear how noisy it is around me? I'm telling you, when you come over, help me get someone drunk." Jiang Wanwan said with a giggle. "Get someone drunk? Which guy have you taken a fancy to? Are you planning to get him drunk and sleep with him?" The voice on the other end asked again. "Do you think I'm you?" Jiang Wanwan pouted. "Anyway, you have 20 minutes. I'll be waiting for you at the entrance of the bar. Hurry up." Yi Xian sat at the booth and poured himself a glass of wine. The drinks Jiang Wanwan ordered were naturally very expensive. Yi Xian glanced at them and found that most of them were strong liquor. He smiled, having roughly guessed Jiang Wanwan's intentions, but he didn't pay much attention to it. Although he hadn't touched a drop of alcohol in the past 3 years, he had never been drunk when it came to drinking. After waiting for a while, he found that Jiang Wanwan hadn't returned. He frowned and said, "Is this girl constipated?" Then he sighed again and said, "Thinking that such a beautiful girl also has to poop, it breaks my heart." He didn't notice that 4 people were sitting in the booth opposite him. Yes, it was Han Shuo, Lin Qingxue, Zhou Yu, and Chen Fan. Chen Fan was constantly making Zhou Yu drink, planning to take advantage of her tonight. Isn't that Yi Xian? At this moment, Han Shuo suddenly pointed at Yi Xian not far away. Lin Qingxue looked over and frowned slightly. Having lived with Yi Xian for 3 years, Yi Xian had never drunk alcohol. Drinking alone over there, it seems like he's drowning his sorrows in alcohol. Han Shuo said, tightening his arm around Lin Qingxue's waist. Chen Fan's eyes flashed with a cold smile. He's walking right into a trap. Yesterday, he made me lose face, and today, he's acting all high and mighty in front of me. I was wondering how to teach him a lesson, but he's actually delivered himself to me. Are you planning to get someone to beat him up? Han Shuo's eyes lit up as he asked. Chen Fan sneered. No need to find someone. Right now, Wang Jin's nephew, Tao Dingyun, is managing Mingmei Bar. I'm familiar with him. Aren't you two on bad terms? Han Shuo frowned and asked. That's because he's also interested in Zhou Qianqian, and I happen to be pursuing her too, so we had a bit of a falling out. But now, if he finds out that Zhou Qianqian's boyfriend is Yi Xian, what do you think he'll do? Chen Fan said with a sinister smile. Then he stood up and walked towards the second floor of the bar. Yi Xian held a glass of wine, sipping it while waiting for Jiang Wanwan. After a short while, a waiter approached and said, "Excuse me, are you Mr. Yi Xian?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes. Miss Zhou Qianqian would like to invite you over," the waiter said with a smile. Yi Xian was slightly surprised. He didn't expect Zhou Qianqian to be here. He looked around but didn't see her. Miss Zhou Qianqian is in a private room on the second floor, the waiter explained further. Yi Xian nodded. All right, lead the way. The waiter led Yi Xian to the second floor and opened the door to a private room. As Yi Xian entered, his brows furrowed slightly. The private room was quite quiet, with quite a few people inside. The moment Yi Xian walked in, the door was closed, and two burly men stood guard with their hands behind their backs. Xin raised his eyebrows slightly and looked around. He didn't find Zhou Qianqian in the room. Instead, he saw Lin Qingxue and the other three. He didn't recognize any of the other people. Inside, a young man with dreadlocks sat, a cigarette dangling from his lips. He looked at Xin and said, "Chen Fan, you said this is Qianqian's boyfriend? I wanted to beat you up for a long time. If you're lying, why would I lie to you? Han Shuo knows too. You didn't attend the gathering organized by old Master Jiang yesterday. Zhou Qianqian brought him along and announced to everyone that he was her boyfriend. If you don't believe me, ask Han Shuo." Chen Fan sat sprawled on the sofa, speaking nonchalantly. This young man with dreadlocks was the current manager of the bar, Tao Dingyun. He sized up Xin and then said, "Sit." Xin chuckled inwardly. He glanced at Lin Qingxue, Han Shuo, and the others, then swaggered over to the sofa and sat down. Tsk tisk. Tao Dingyun stood up and walked towards Xin, saying, "If they hadn't told me, I would never have believed that Zhou Qianqian would be interested in someone like you. Two things. First, call Qianqian and break up with her. Second, they said Qianqian held your arm." With that, Tao Dingyun picked up a steel pipe from the coffee table and threw it in front of Xin. "Which arm did she hold? Break it yourself. Otherwise, you're not walking out of here." As soon as he finished speaking, Chen Feng and Han Shuo grinned with schadenfreude. Zhou Yu and Lin Qingxue's faces changed drastically. They had originally come up to watch the show. They thought that Xin would at most get beaten up and taught a lesson. But they never expected that Tao Dingyun would demand that Xin break his own arm. No matter what, they still hadn't integrated into this circle of rich second-generation heirs. Sometimes having money really did allow one to do whatever they wanted. "This is a bit too much," Lin Qingxue said, her face slightly changed. Han Shuo quickly pulled her back and whispered, "Don't interfere." Chen Fan then said, "Brother Yun, I think one arm isn't enough. You can beat him to within an inch of his life. Just leave him breathing. I'll pay half of the medical expenses." Xin remained calmly seated, a slightly mocking smile on his face. "What? You can't understand me?" Tao Dingyun sneered. At this time, several people immediately surrounded Xin. Tao Dingyun said with a cold smile, "If I have to do it myself, I'm afraid it won't be just one arm that gets broken." Looking at these people, Xin sighed inwardly. "I thought the first time I'd fight after recovering my memories would be against the Blood Lotus. I didn't expect it to be against a bunch of thugs." Downstairs, at the booth, Jiang Wanwan entered with a scantily clad girl. As soon as they walked in, the girl looked at the empty booth and asked, "Where's the person you wanted me to get drunk?" Jiang Wanwan was also stunned. She looked around, but didn't see Xin. She then flagged down a waiter and asked, "Excuse me, where is the person who is sitting at this booth?" "Him? He was taken to the second floor by our boss," the waiter said. Jiang Wanwan frowned. "What does your boss want with him?" The waiter, seeing that Jiang Wanwan was beautiful, said proudly, "What else could it be? He probably offended our boss. He'll likely be in the hospital for a long time. Miss, I'm only telling you this because you're pretty. You should leave quickly, so you don't get caught in the crossfire with our boss." Jiang Wanwan's face changed. "What?" She took out her phone and walked to a relatively quiet place, saying, "Dad, something's happened. Xin was taken away by the boss of this Mingmei bar. The waiter said he offended their boss." "Yes, the Mingmei bar owned by Uncle Wang's family," Jiang Wanwan said. She hung up the phone quickly, her face filled with anxiety. She was curious about Xin and brought him to this bar. But clearly, even her father treated Xin with respect. If something really happened to Xin, she didn't know how she would explain it. In the private room on the second floor, seeing that Xin wasn't moving, Tao Dingyun's face turned cold. He grabbed a steel pipe, stood up, and walked towards Xin. Han Shuo sneered, "Brother Yun, hit him hard. This guy is my girlfriend's ex-husband, and now he's provoking Zhou Qianqian. Cripple him. Let him know what he should and shouldn't do." Chen Fan also chimed in gleefully. "Like I said, as long as he's still breathing, I'll pay half the medical bills." Tao Dingyun held the steel pipe, cracked his neck, and a ferocious grin spread across his face. At this moment, his phone rang. He glanced at it, quickly answered, and said respectfully, "Hello, uncle. I'm at the bar." "What's up?" After a moment, his face changed drastically, and he said, "Really?" Then a furious voice came from the phone. "Apologize to him immediately. If he's not satisfied, then don't bother working at the bar anymore. Get the hell out of Jiang City." The other person hung up immediately. Chun Fan and the others didn't hear the contents of the call. They only saw that Tao Dingyun's face had turned extremely dark after hanging up. Clearly, this phone call had put Tao Dingyun in a much worse mood. They knew Tao Dingyun well. If he was in a bad mood, then Yi Xian would likely be beaten even more severely. The smiles on their faces grew even wider. Tao Dingyun exhaled, turned around abruptly, walked up to Chun Fan and Han Shuo, and then raised his hand. Smack! Smack! Two slaps landed squarely on their faces. Both Chun Fan and Han Shuo were stunned. Before they could react, Tao Dingyun took 2 steps towards Yi Xian, pushed aside the people surrounding him, and under everyone's stunned gazes, dropped to his knees with a thud. Thump! Inside a private room on the 2nd floor of the bar, Tao Dingyun knelt down before Yi Xian with a loud thud. Han Shuo and Chun Fan, who had just been slapped, sat there in a complete daze. Lin Qingxue was even more astonished. This Tao Dingyun, who was described by Han Shuo and Chun Fan as fearless and domineering in Jiang City, had suddenly knelt down before Yi Xian. The dramatic contrast left her in a state of utter bewilderment. Tao Dingyun knelt on the ground, a fawning smile on his face. He looked at Yi Xian and said, "Brother Xian, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I didn't know you were a friend of old Master Jiang. Otherwise, even if you gave me 100 guts, I wouldn't dare to provoke you. Please be the bigger person and don't hold it against me." Yi Xian was speechless. He roughly guessed that after he disappeared, Jiang Wanwan had contacted Jiang Zhenan, and then Jiang Zhenan had made a phone call to settle things. Lin Qingxue, standing nearby, was even more stunned. Yi Xian was Jiang Zhenan's friend? The friend of Jiang City's richest man? Han Shuo and Chun Fan's mouths twitched. They were somewhat confused about what was going on. They suddenly recalled the incident where they knelt down before Jiang Zhenan yesterday. In an instant, many things became clear to them. Why could Yi Xian dine on the top floor of the Marriott Hotel? Because the damn Marriott Hotel was Jiang Zhenan's property. But what they didn't understand was, wasn't it said that they had mistaken the person at that time? Why did he come to help Yi Xian again now? While they were lost in thought, Tao Dingyun said with a flattering smile, "Brother Xian, how about we just let this matter go? All your expenses in the bar today are on me." Yi Xian smiled slightly, patted his backside, stood up, and said, "Don't bother me." Then he turned around and walked towards the door without a backward glance. Seeing that Yi Xian didn't seem to want to pursue the matter, Tao Dingyun breathed a long sigh of relief. As he watched Yi Xian walk towards the door, he stood up and suddenly turned to Han Shuo and Chun Fan, saying, "Drag these 2 grandsons out and beat them to death. Damn it, they almost got me killed. Tao Dingyun, you dare to touch us?" Han Shuo's expression changed, and he said fiercely, Beat them to death." Tao Dingyun's face was dark. 7 or 8 people quickly surrounded Chun Fan and Han Shuo. Yes, Tao Dingyun was almost mad with anger. Yi Xian's attire made him look like a nobody, but even his own uncle wouldn't dare to provoke him. If something really happened to Yi Xian here, he wouldn't just be kicked out of Jiang City, but whether he could even get out was a question. Hearing the noise and screams behind him, Yi Xian stopped at the door and calmly said, "Don't touch the women." "Brother Xian, no problem," Tao Dingyun quickly replied. Yi Xian ignored what was happening inside and pushed the door open. Outside, it was still very noisy, the heavy music constantly shaking the place. In the hall on the 1st floor, many people were dancing in the middle of the dance floor. Yi Xian walked through the crowd and returned to his booth. Seeing Yi Xian return, Jiang Wanwan patted her ample chest and said, "It's good that you're okay." Then, she looked at the girl next to her and said, "Let me introduce you. This is my best friend, Qin Xiaowei. This is Yi Xian." After saying that, she smiled faintly and said, I'm not a good drinker, and I was afraid you wouldn't have fun, so I called my best friend over. Is that okay? Yi Xian smiled and said, It's up to you. And just have a little to drink. TSK, handsome, not bad. Our Wanwan never comes to bars, but you managed to get her out here. Does she have a thing for you? Qin Xiaowei's personality was obviously much more outgoing. Xiaowei, don't talk nonsense. Zhang Wanwan glared at her, then leaned close to Qin Xiaowei's ear and said, Don't talk nonsense, just get him drunk. Qin Xiaowei smiled noncommittally, then poured a full glass of wine and said, Nice to meet you, I'll drink this first. Yi Xian was surprised. Most of these were high-alcohol drinks, and she just downed a whole glass. This girl had potential. At the back door of the Mingmei bar, Tao Dingyun kicked Han Shuo and Chen Fan to the ground, spitting on each of them. Two idiots daring to provoke anyone. Get the hell out of here! Behind them, Lin Qingxue and Zhou Yu stood there, pale and trembling. Tao Dingyun glanced at the two women, curled his lip, and turned back to the bar with his men. After he left, Lin Qingxue and the other woman quickly went over to help Han Shuo and Chen Fan up and asked, Are you okay? Tui. Han Shuo spat out a mouthful of saliva, with a trace of blood in it. His face was dark. Tao Dingyun naturally didn't dare to go too far. Han Shuo and Chen Fan both had backgrounds. If they were seriously injured, he wouldn't be able to explain himself. But bruises and swelling were inevitable. Didn't you say that Yi Xian was just a useless construction worker? He looked at Lin Qingxue with an unkind expression. Yes, he was angry, but he couldn't deal with Tao Dingyun, so he subconsciously took his anger out on the woman. Lin Qingxue's expression changed slightly, and she said, Yes, I was married to him for 3 years. He was useless. He wouldn't fight back when hit or talk back when scolded. You saw how he was dressed when we first met him at the Xinhai Bank. Then why is Tao Dingyun afraid of him? Han Shuo asked with a dark face. Lin Qingxue was stunned, then said in a low voice, I don't know. Han Shuo's face became even darker, and then he looked at Lin Qingxue and gritted his teeth. I'm injured. You have to stay with me tonight. Otherwise, we're breaking up, and you have to return the car and the fund I bought for you. Lin Qingxue frowned. She was no pushover either. She knew that if she gave in to Han Shuo too easily, he wouldn't cherish her. No, I have something to deal with at home tonight. Lin Qingxue quickly shook her head. Meanwhile, in the Garden District, in Lin Qingxue's home, Bai Lianxiang was sitting on the sofa Yi Xian had bought, watching TV. Beside her, Lin Qian sat there, looking worried. Qian, what's wrong? We don't know when Qingxue will be back. Bai Lianxiang looked at Lin Qian and said, Is something on your mind? Lin Qian bit her lip and said, Annie, our company has a new owner. So what if there's a new owner? It doesn't affect your work. Bai Lianxiang said dismissively. Lin Qian shook her head and said, It does. Do you know who our new owner is? It's Yi Xian, Sister Lin Shue's ex-husband. Bai Lianxiang looked at Lin Qian in astonishment. Bai Lianxiang stared at Lin Qian in disbelief, then scoffed. Impossible. We know what Yi Xian is capable of. If he could buy your company, he wouldn't be laying bricks. Qingxue wouldn't have divorced him. We would have been pampering him. It's true. I'm not lying, Lin Qian said worriedly. And I feel like he's targeting me. Yesterday, my boss offended him at the entrance because of me, and then he was fired for no reason. You're overthinking it. It's probably just someone with the same name, Bai Lianxiang said dismissively. Don't create problems for yourself. Lin Qian shook her head. His photo is hanging on our company's owner's wall. Bai Lianxiang still didn't believe her. Are you sick? Are you hallucinating? Even if you saw correctly, have you considered if Yi Xian was so rich, would he need to break his back laying bricks for 3 years? That's why I don't understand. I'm so worried. What if he really is our boss? My job, Lin Qian said anxiously. Oh, you're just thinking too much. First of all, it's impossible. Even if it were true, you can just find another job. Bai Lianxiang said, My new son-in-law, Han Shuo, his family's company is much better than your logistics company. I'll have Qingxue talk to him, and you can go work for their company. Bai Lianxiang was very fond of her new son-in-law. He bought her bags and bought her daughter a car. Such a golden catch was hard to find. As for Lin Xian's words, she didn't believe them at all. Meanwhile, at the bright bar, it was around 10 p.m. Yi Xian and Qin Xiaowei sat awkwardly in a booth. Between them, Jiang Wanwan, her face flushed, held a bottle of liquor, pouting and tilting her head at Yi Xian. "Come on, let's keep drinking. I have to get you drunk today and make you confess everything." Jiang Wanwan was drunk. She had intended to get Yi Xian drunk, but had also had a few drinks herself. Her tolerance was low. She had only had 2 drinks, but they were strong. Yi Xian was fine, but she couldn't hold her liquor. "Maybe we shouldn't drink anymore," Yi Xian said, glancing at Qin Xiaowei. "Let's take her home." "Home? No way." Jiang Wanwan grabbed Yi Xian. "We're not leaving until we're drunk. You're not drunk yet, so you can't go back. Xiaowei, I asked you here to help me get Yi Xian drunk. Drink with him." "I'm already drunk," Yi Xian quickly said to appease her. "Drunk?" Jiang Wanwan's hazy eyes lit up. "Then tell me, who are you? Why is my father, a man of his stature, so obedient to you?" Yi Xian was amused. The girl had given everything away in her drunken state. He didn't mind, though. Qin Xiaowei came over and put her arm around Jiang Wanwan, looking at Yi Xian. "You hold your liquor well." Qin Xiaowei was genuinely surprised. She was known for her high tolerance and rarely got drunk at the bar. But Yi Xian had definitely drunk more than her. It would have been enough to get most people drunk 2 or 3 times over. Yet Yi Xian seemed perfectly fine. "Xiaowei, stop talking to him and get him drunk." She mumbled something else, but it was too loud to hear clearly. Whack! Qin Xiaowei lightly chopped Jiang Wanwan's neck. Jiang Wanwan froze, then went limp against Qin Xiaowei. Yi Xian's eyes flickered. That move told him Qin Xiaowei had training. "Could you do me a favor and carry her to the car? We'll take her home." Qin Xiaowei sighed. "I'll call a driver." Yi Xian nodded, picking up Jiang Wanwan in a princess carry and walking out with Qin Xiaowei. He looked down at Jiang Wanwan, a slight smile on his lips. The first time he met her, she seemed cold and aloof, a realized queen. Today, in private, she was playful and quirky. Now drunk, her face was flushed, and she looked cute and mischievous. It was a pity that such a girl was being targeted by Blood Lotus. A cold glint flashed in Yi Xian's eyes. Qin Xiaowei called a driver and drove towards Jiang Wanwan's home. Jiang Wanwan lived in a luxurious villa complex. The houses here were incredibly expensive, each worth tens of millions. Of course, for the daughter of Jiangqing's richest man, it was nothing. The car slowly entered the complex. When they arrived, the driver said, "We're here." "Thanks." Qin Xiaowei, supporting Jiang Wanwan, opened the car door and said to Yi Xian, "Give me a hand." Yi Xian didn't move. Sitting in the passenger seat, his eyes were fixed on the rearview mirror. He licked his lips. Blood Lotus? He knew they were after Jiang Wanwan. Zhi Qiyu and Ming Xiaonan had been busy with this matter. He hadn't expected to run into them like this. The driver opened his door. Suddenly, Qin Xiaowei's expression changed. Assassin. 2 dark figures lunged at them. One went straight for the driver, a gleaming dagger aimed at his heart. At the critical moment, Yi Xian yanked the driver back. The dagger plunged into his thigh. The driver screamed. The other figure lunged at the back seat, aiming for Qin Xiaowei. Qin Xiaowei slammed the door shut, dodging sideways while delivering a spinning kick to the attacker's abdomen. "Lock the doors!" she yelled, slamming the back door shut to ensure Jiang Wanwan's safety. The driver, ignoring his injured leg, locked the doors. Yi Xian got out of the car. Seeing him emerge, Qin Xiaowei's face lit up, thinking he was coming to help. "You deal with." Before she could finish, Yi Xian had bolted. That coward! Qin Xiaowei was furious. She would have understood if he stayed in the car, but she never expected him to run. She had no time to dwell on it. With the doors locked, the 2 figures attacked her simultaneously. Yi Xian hadn't run away. He quickly scaled the wall of Jiang Wanwan's villa. The 2 outside were just pawns. He had seen enough to know Qin Xiaowei could handle them. The real threat was inside the villa. Tisk TSK. It seems the intel was wrong. The report claimed Jiang Wanwan's bodyguard was useless. but you managed to spot me. Clearly, the information was inaccurate. As he spoke, snap, the living room lights flicked on. Sitting nonchalantly on the sofa was a young man with dyed blonde hair. He lounged there, flipping a knife skillfully in his hand, his expression tinged with mockery as he stared at Yexin. Yexin remained silent, calmly observing the man in turn. Not bad, staying calm under pressure. But it's a pity, you're already a dead man. The young man grinned. You? Yexin chuckled faintly. Yes, me, the young man replied coolly. I'm the youngest elite assassin from Red Lotus. He smirked disdainfully and continued. You've probably never heard of Red Lotus, have you? Makes sense. An underground organization like ours isn't something people like you would know about. But for you to have discovered me, it's beyond my expectations. Unfortunately, in 30 seconds, you'll be a corpse. If you have any last words, say them now. The young man's arrogance and overconfidence were unmistakable. 3 seconds, Yexin said calmly. What? The young man's expression shifted. I said, 3 seconds to take you down. As soon as the words fell, Yexin moved. For the first time since regaining his memories, Yexin acted. For the first time in 3 years, he made his move. In that instant, anyone who knew Yexin would have been horrified by his expression and gaze, cold, violent, murderous. He looked like the Grim Reaper descending upon the mortal world. Wah! The young man's face twisted in shock. In a flash, Yexin was already beside him. A smirk played on Yexin's lips. Even trash from Red Lotus dares to act tough in front of me? Boom! Before the young man could react, Yexin's fist landed squarely on his face. Bang! The young man was launched off the ground, only to feel his leg caught midair. The next moment, his body was slammed violently into the ground, cracking the tiles of Jiang Wanwan's living room floor. There was no time to respond. His knife had somehow already ended up in Yexin's hand. The cold blade pressed against his neck. The young man's forehead and back broke out in cold sweat, a chill shooting up his spine. He had always been confident, a prodigy, the youngest star assassin of Red Lotus. In all his missions, he had never failed. But against Yexin, he didn't even have a chance to fight back. The gap in skill was insurmountable. I'm his son, grandson of Red Lotus's leader, Helantion. You can't kill me, the young man stammered, his voice trembling. Helantion? He better stay hidden forever. If he dares show his face, I'll be the first to cut off his head. Yexin sneered, his cold eyes fixed on the young man. He licked his lips and added, 3 years without a kill. Congratulations, you're my first after my return. 3 years. He soon froze, then gasped in terror. You're Night Watcher Zero, the... Swish. Before he could finish, the knife in Yexin's hand sliced cleanly across his throat. Blood trickled down as Sun's eyes remained wide with shock, though his breathing had already ceased. Yexin smiled faintly, grabbed a few tissues to press against the wound to prevent blood from staining the floor, then glanced outside. A voice shouted angrily from the distance. That coward! He ran away, leaving me, a woman, to face 2 people alone. If you dare come near Jiang Wanwan again, I'll beat you every time I see you. It was Qin Xiaowei. Yexin chuckled to himself. Knowing it wouldn't be good for Qin Xiaowei or others to see the body, he hoisted it onto his shoulder, turned off the lights, opened a nearby window, and leaped out. As a night watcher, ensuring ordinary people were unaware and undisturbed was part of the job. Avoiding all cameras, Yexin carried the body to a secluded area. Then he called Zhichuyu. Hey, I took down a Red Lotus elite assassin. I'm at. Shortly after, an off-road vehicle pulled up beside him. Inside, Zhichuyu and Ming Xiaonan, both in Night Watcher gear with swords strapped to their backs, came into view. What happened? Zhichuyu asked. Yexin opened the trunk, stuffed the body inside, and got into the car, explaining everything. After listening, Zhichuyu's expression darkened. Why didn't you capture him alive? If we had a live target, we could have extracted their plans from him. Yexin scratched his head. He acted tough in front of me, so I couldn't help but kill him. Ming Xiaonan laughed. Come on, Dr. Zhe. Taking down an elite assassin is impressive enough. Humph. Zhiqiu snorted coldly. The morning sun streamed through the windows, illuminating the bedroom. Jiang Wanwan groggily opened her eyes to see a face wearing a sheet mask. Xiaowei. Jiang Wanwan blinked. Why are you in my house? You don't even know how dangerous it was last night. Qin Xiaowei snapped, glaring at her. Someone tried to assassinate you. Jiang Wanwan froze, then pouted. You must have scared them off again, right? Of course. Do you even know who I am? Qin Xiaowei said smugly. Did I get drunk last night? What a pity I couldn't get Yi Xine drunk and get him to spill the truth. I'm so curious why my dad respects him so much. How exactly did he save my dad? Jiang Wanwan muttered wistfully. Don't mention that coward. Qin Xiaowei fumed at the mention of Yi Xine. When someone charged him last night, he just turned tail and ran. That guy saved your dad? I don't buy it. All right, I'll go freshen up, Jiang Wanwan said, climbing out of bed. Walking into the living room, she frowned. Xiaowei, why are my floor tiles cracked? Meanwhile, Yi Xine, in good spirits after a restful sleep, strolled out of his home around 10 in the morning, planning to grab breakfast. At the community gate, a sharp, sarcastic voice called out. Yi Xine, you've really got no shame, huh? Borrowing money just to rent a place here? It was by Lin Xiang, returning from grocery shopping. Yi Xine frowned, but ignored her. You think this will help you? You and Qing Xue are impossible. Look at you. How can you compare to Han Shua? He's richer, more generous, throwing around thousands like it's nothing, Bai Lianxiang sneered. Yi Xen frowned again. Out of respect for Uncle Lin saving me once, let me warn you. Han Shua isn't a good person. Not a good person? Bai Lianxiang scoffed, gesturing at her outfit. See this? Han Shua bought it. Cost thousands. Yi Xen couldn't be bothered to reply. Oh, and yesterday Qian said you're her company's boss. I told her no way. What kind of boss lazes around at 10 in the morning? You'll never amount to anything more than manual labor, Bai Lianxiang said dismissively. Yi Xien didn't bother to argue with this shrewish woman. He ignored her, turned around, and left. He went to a breakfast stall, ordered a bowl of porridge and a basket of steamed buns, and started eating while scrolling through his phone. You little brat, you are here after all? Yi Xien looked up and saw Yang Chong sitting in front of him, looking at him speechlessly. He often came to this breakfast shop, so he wasn't surprised that Yang Chong could find him. Why aren't you at work? What are you doing here? Yi Xien asked in surprise. You didn't tell me what's going on. How could I work? When I saw your name in the boss column yesterday, I was dumbfounded. Hurry up and tell me what's going on. Also about Su Xiaodong, you were behind that too, right? Yang Chong mumbled. Su Xiaodong was his foreman. Since the last time he asked Zhou Qianqian to deal with him, Yi Xien hadn't paid any attention to him. What happened to him? Yi Xien asked. You don't know, several real estate companies are suing him. The compensation amount is so high that even selling his wife and children wouldn't be enough. Yang Chong grabbed a bun and stuffed it into his mouth. He called me yesterday, begging me to come and ask you to put in a good word for him. He didn't seem too uncomfortable with Yi Xien's change in status, and their interaction remained the same. He brought it upon himself, and it's true that the project he contracted cut corners. That can't be denied. He deserves this outcome. Yi Xien said calmly. Yang Chong pouted. I didn't come here for that. I'm asking you what happened. How did you suddenly become the boss of Shengshi Company? Yi Xien sighed. He felt there was nothing to hide from Yang Chong. You know that I can't remember anything from 3 years ago, right? Yi Xien said. Yeah. Yang Chong nodded. And then actually I'm a very rich person. Suddenly my memory recovered. I found my bank card, checked it, and found that there was a lot of money in it. In order to make Lin Qingshue's family regret, I went to acquire Shengshi Company and deliberately let Lin Qian find out that I was rich. Yi Xien said simply. As for the night watchman stuff, he naturally couldn't tell Yang Chong. You're planning to slap them in the face. Yang Chong's eyes lit up. Yi Xien smiled and said, That's what I thought before, but now, I don't hate them that much anymore. After regaining his memory, his perspective had indeed changed a lot. He didn't belong here in the first place. And no matter what, Lin Qingshue's father had saved his life once. That house was nothing to him now. He considered it as repayment for the favor. Of course, Yi Xan couldn't completely forget the grievances he had suffered in the past 3 years. No matter what, he had to make these two women uncomfortable. You should go to work. Although I'm the boss, it's not good for you to keep skipping work. And you still need to learn something here. Although I won't fire you, you'll feel bad if people gossip about you. Yi Xian said, I know, but I took the day off today. The company directly prepaid me 500,000 yuan in salary. I was so eager that I took him into the hospital for surgery yesterday. I only came out to find you today while he was asleep. Yang Chong said. Yi Xian nodded. All right, then I'll go with you to see him later. Meanwhile, at the entrance of Shengshi Company, a balding, middle-aged man in a suit was anxiously pacing back and forth. He was carrying a briefcase and a bottle of fine wine in each hand. Soon a beautiful figure came running over. When she saw the middle-aged man, she asked in surprise, Uncle Bai, why are you looking for me? This person was Lin Qingshue's uncle, Bai Lianxiang's brother, Bai Bo. When Bai Bo saw Lin Qian, a smile appeared on his face. He hurriedly said, Qian, it's like this. I wanted to meet with your company's general manager, he. Our company's goods have always been transported by Shengshi. Yesterday, he suddenly told me that the cooperation was terminated. I went to other logistics companies, but their prices are too high. Lin Qian's face changed slightly. She suddenly remembered what Yi Xian had said to them at the door when he got divorced. You will regret it. And now, Yi Xian had become her boss, and the company had terminated its cooperation with Bai Bo. She didn't know exactly what was going on, but she knew one thing. Yi Xian was completely different from what she had imagined. Lin Qian smiled bitterly and said, I can't help you with this. I'm just a small employee in the company. It's like this. I just saw General Manager He at the door, but he didn't want to talk to me. I was thinking if you could take me into the company, I could go and find General Manager He. Bai Bo said. Lin Qian sighed and looked at Bai Bo. Uncle, although I don't know what's going on, this is indeed the case. General Manager, he is no longer our boss. Our boss now is Yi Xian. Yi Xian? Which Yi Xian? Bai Bo asked. Lin Qian smiled bitterly. Who else could it be? Sister Qingshue's ex-husband. Bai Bo's face suddenly changed, filled with disbelief. Lin Qian said, So instead of coming to me, you should go to Aunt and Sister Qingxue, but I don't think it will be of any use. We treated Yi Xian like that before. He's taking revenge on us? Bai Bo said, his face pale. In fact, this matter had little to do with Yi Xian. Yesterday, he mentioned to Jiang Jinan to take care of Shengshi. Then, Jiang Jinan immediately called He Gang to discuss cooperation. He Gang was scared out of his wits when he received the call. This was the richest man in Jiang City. Their business was huge. After receiving this news, he quickly made a decision and terminated some less important businesses to free up resources to do business with the Jiang family. Bai Bo was just caught in the crossfire. To be honest, I'm also in a mess right now. Lin Qian's beautiful face was filled with worry. I feel like I could lose my job at any moment in the company. After eating with Yang Chong at the entrance, Yi Xian went with him to the hospital to see Yin. Then he said goodbye to them and took a taxi home. Now he didn't have to work. The company was basically running on its own, and Zhichuyu hadn't assigned him anything to do with the night watchman. He was really feeling idle. It was already noon when he got home. Zhichuyu and Ming Xiaonan had prepared lunch. When Yi Xian returned, Zhichuyu glanced at him and said, You're quite free. Yi Xian chuckled. There's nothing to do. I haven't returned to the night watchman, and there are no missions to carry out. Zhichuyu rolled her eyes at Yi Xian and said, You don't need to go back to the night watchman. Oh? Yi Xian asked in surprise. What do you mean? You disappeared for 3 years. I just talked to the old man on the phone, and this is also his intention. In these 3 years, both within the night watchman and other forces, everyone thought you had completely disappeared. So you don't need to be exposed for the time being. In this city, cooperate with us as an undercover agent. It will be easier to carry out some missions. Zhichuyu said. Yi Xian's eyes lit up. That's true. It's also more freedom. How about your mission? Yi Xian asked. It's going according to plan. Zhichuyu said. It's time to find something for you to do. Nearby, Ming Xiaonan was eating and suddenly coughed. Yi Xian didn't pay much attention. His eyes lit up. Have you found their people? Not exactly, Zhi Chuyu said, but we know their purpose is to kidnap or kill Jiang Wanwan to force Jiang Jinan to join their organization. You know, Jiang Jinan knows of our existence. When we first arrived, we had already contacted Jiang Jinan. Now the most important thing is to ensure Jiang Wanwan's safety. So, Yi Xian asked, so we need to send someone to Jiang Wanwan's side under the radar. Someone who has a legitimate reason to be there. Zhi Chuyu took a bite of her food and asked calmly, you mean you want me to be Jiang Wanwan's bodyguard? Yi Xian asked in surprise. He didn't object to this kind of thing. He had often acted as a bodyguard for the target person in previous missions. Not a bodyguard if the bodyguard is too obvious. Zhi Chuyu said, if it's a bodyguard, they will most likely guess that it's our person, so they will choose to strike when the bodyguard is not around. Speaking of this, she looked at Yi Xian and said, you disappeared for 3 years. In Jiang City, you were just an ordinary person, so if you appear by Jiang Wanwan's side, no one will think much of it, especially as her husband. Wait, Yi Xian felt something was wrong. He quickly said, what identity did you say? Husband, Zhi Chuyu said calmly. I told you after we arrived in Jiang City, we contacted Jiang Jinan. So he organized a gathering and announced that anyone can pursue Jiang Wanwan. In the end, you successfully wooed Jiang Wanwan and married into the Jiang family. Become the son-in-law of the Jiang family. She looked at Yi Xian, whose pupils were wide open, and said, this way, you can go in and out with Jiang Wanwan, even sleep in the same bed, and you can completely provide 24-hour personal protection. I'm not that ordinary now. I bought a company. My photo is even posted on that company's boss column. Yi Xian rubbed his aching head. That's perfect. That company is a gift from Jiang Jinan to you. Zhi Chuyu's tone remained calm. Yi Xian frowned. This way, in everyone's eyes, he would really become a man who lived off a woman. But I just got divorced. Jiang Jinan only announced it 2 or 3 days ago. And then I'm going to marry Jiang Wanwan? That's faster than lightning, Yi Xian said speechlessly. Jiang Jinan couldn't sit still anymore. If it weren't for you last night, Jiang Wanwan would probably be dead, said Jiqiu. Yi Xian slowly exhaled, pondered, and tapped his fingers lightly on the table, saying, but Dr. Zhe, you know my body, my heart, they all belong to you. Stop talking nonsense. Only when you are by Jiang Wanwan's side can we be completely at ease, Jiqiu said with a cold snort. Yi Xian pouted and said, about this matter, let's not talk about whether I'm willing or not. Whether Jiang Wanwan is willing or not is another matter. Jiang Jinan knows about our existence, but Jiang Wanwan doesn't. Jiqiu pondered for a moment. At this moment, Yi Xian's phone suddenly rang. He picked it up and saw that it was Lin Qingxue calling. Yi Xian frowned, answered the phone, and said, hello, what's up? On the other end of the phone, Lin Qingxue's voice sounded. I heard that you are now the boss of Shengshe Company? That's amazing. I wonder whose sugar daddy you found to give you such a big company. Her words had a sour taste. She always believed that Yi Xian was a loser and didn't think that Yi Xian could buy such a company with his own ability. It must be that Yi Xian had found a wealthy person who gave it to him. Of course, she was very sour. Compared with what Yi Xian now owned, the things Han Shuo gave her were too shabby. Yi Xian didn't bother to explain anything to her. In fact, he felt that it was good to draw a clear line with his mother and daughter and his family through divorce. If you have something to say, say it. If not, I'll hang up, Yi Xian said indifferently. Now that you have money, you're different. You dare to talk to me like this. Yi Xian, you're really something, Lin Qingxue continued sourly. Don't you live in my neighborhood? Come to my house. There are some things about the divorce that I want to talk to you about. After saying that, Lin Qingxue hung up the phone. Yi Xian frowned, but he still decided to go, just to make things clear. He greeted Jiqiu and said, I'm going out for a while. Then what I asked you to do is settled, Jiqiu said. What's settled? Yi Xian quickly said, it's not good to get married like this. Although it may be a fake marriage this time. What if Jiang Wanwan falls in love with me? There are many ways to keep her safe, not necessarily marriage. Let me think about this. This is a strategic plan, Zhiqiu quickly said. Yi Xian smiled, did not agree, put on his shoes, and ran away. Ming Xiaonan said happily, I told you he wouldn't agree. After all, he just got divorced, and his previous marriage was not very good. Zhiqiu pondered and then said seriously, That's right, this is a fear of marriage. This is a disease. It needs to be treated. Yi Xian went out and easily returned to his former residence. He knocked on the door, and the door opened quickly. To Yi Xian's surprise, there were a lot of people sitting inside the room, more than a dozen people. Lin Qian's family, his uncle's family, and some other relatives were all sitting inside. Komi? Lin Qingxue, who opened the door, said. Yi Xian entered the room, and Lin Qingxue closed the door. At this time, Bai Lianxiang said sarcastically, Oh, amazing. You found a sugar daddy after the divorce, and now you're starting to scheme against us? Although Bai Lianxiang was still unwilling to admit that Yi Xian had suddenly become Lin Qian's boss, she had to admit that it was a fact after her brother Bai Bo confirmed it. Scheme against you? I'm not that bored. Yi Xian pouted. This is what he really thought. Bai Lianxiang smiled and said, Now you look down on us, right? What? You bought the company and immediately terminated the cooperation with my brother's company. If this isn't revenge, then what is it? Yi Xian touched his nose. He Gang had called him in the morning and told him that he had taken over Zhang's business and terminated the business of some small companies. Bai Bo's company was probably among these small companies. What? Speechless. Bai Lianxiang sneered. Hearing her words, the anger in Yi Xian's heart was also forced out. For the sake of saving his life, even though he had recovered his memory, he still left a way out. He had encountered Bai Lianxiang several times, and he just smiled at her sarcasm. But at this moment, listening to that sarcastic tone, he felt that he didn't need to endure it anymore. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Bai Lianxiang. Let's not say that I'm just a hands-off boss and don't interfere in the company's affairs. Even if I did it, so what? His tone was a little cold, and Bai Lianxiang was stunned for a moment. After a moment, she screamed and shouted, Aren't you just living off a woman? What are you showing off to me? Then, she stared at Yi Xian and said, Don't forget, your dog life was saved by my husband. We also let you live in our house for 3 years. Now that you're divorced, you're kicking us to the curb. You ungrateful wretch. At this time, Lin Qian's father, Lin Jingyan, also quickly said, That's right, Yi Xian. 3 years ago, your life was saved by my brother. What you're doing now is indeed a bit unkind. You're pretending to be a good person here? Yi Xian's anger rose from his heart. He suddenly looked at him and said, In the past 3 years, have you, your family, ever given me a good face? Speaking of living off a woman, what am I compared to you, mother and daughter? Have you gone out to work for even a bit in the past 3 years? I worked hard on the construction site and couldn't earn much money. But with the brute strength you've always looked down on, was there any month in these 3 years that I brought home less than 20,000 yuan? What did you do? I worked hard to support you for 3 years, but I never got a good word from you. You thought my job was embarrassing, thought Lin Qingxue was beautiful and should find a rich man. As a result, she ended up with a construction worker. Did any of you say a good word to me in these 3 years? Yi Xian cursed. For a moment, everyone was stunned. But Yi Xian said with a cold smile, Don't fucking forget, the house you're living in now was bought with my money. And then, Lin Qingxue cheated on me during the marriage, found a rich second generation. And then you, Bai Lianxiang, immediately kicked me out and wanted to divorce me. You even kicked me out. When it comes to living off a woman, bitches like you who force others to support you have no right to say a word here. Yi Xian sneered. Silence. The whole room fell completely silent. They never expected that this submissive guy would one day dare to speak to them so loudly. Especially Bai Lianxiang and Lin Qingxue. Their faces were extremely ugly. After a brief moment of astonishment, Bai Lianxiang suddenly screamed, jumped towards Yi Xian, and shouted, You ungrateful wretch! I'll fight you today. With that, she waved her hands and rushed towards Yi Xian. Slap! Yi Xian suddenly raised his hand and slapped her in the face. Bai Lianxiang was completely stunned. Mom! Lin Qingxue quickly ran over, helped Bai Lianxiang up, and then suddenly looked at Yi Xian and said, Yi Xian, how dare you hit my mother? How dare you hit me? How dare you hit me? You ungrateful wretch. Bai Lianxiang was going crazy. Yi Xian sneered. For what you did to me in the past 3 years and what you did during the divorce, this slap is considered even. Yi Xian, don't go too far. At this time, several young people stood up. A trace of disdain appeared on Yi Xian's lips. He tilted his head and looked at them. What? Do you want to fight? At this moment, none of those who stood up dared to move. Yi Xian's eyes were too cold, so cold that everyone felt unfamiliar and scared. Yang Jing'an was also stunned. He was a teacher and thought he was good at judging people, but Yi Xian's change before and after was too big. Yi Xian, it's still unnecessary to fight. Let's just part on good terms. Yang Jing'an quickly said. Yi Xian glanced at him indifferently, then looked at Lin Qingxue and said, As you've always said, since we're divorced, we have no relationship anymore. After today, we are strangers. I won't disturb your life, and you don't bother me. Beside them, Lin Xian and Bai Bo's faces changed. Lin Xian was worried about losing her job, and Bai Bo, his face was even paler. His company was not big. Previously, he had cooperated with Shengshi Logistics, and the price was not too high. The prices of other logistics companies in Jiang City were much higher, and the efficiency was not as fast as Shengshi's. This was a huge loss for him. He stood up, looked at Yi Xian, and then said, Then Yi Xian, our company. Yi Xian pouted and said, Don't talk to me about this. I'm a hands-off boss and don't manage anything about the company. Yi Xian, you are so heartless. Bai Lianxiang had recovered at this time. She gritted her teeth and looked at Yi Xian. You slapped me. Remember, my son-in-law Han Shuo won't let you go. Don't think that you can come to my house and show off just because you have some money. I said, from today onwards, I don't want to have anything to do with you. As for Han Shuo, don't keep calling him your son-in-law. He hasn't married your daughter yet. Don't get kicked to the curb after he gets tired of playing with her. Yi Xian sneered. Besides, I don't even care about Han Shuo. After saying that, Yi Xian pushed open the door and walked away, leaving a room full of people standing or sitting, staring at Yi Xian's back in a daze.